Chapter 1370. The crazily condensed planets were quickly pieced together, forming a huge planet. This huge planet shone with five-colored light. The environment inside was not a monotonous five-colored world. Instead, it had turned into a real world with life, full of mountains and rivers. Actually, it was not difficult to condense mountains and rivers. The key was that the mountains and rivers in this planet were filled with the power of the five elements. Unlike other planets, which looked like they had all kinds of mountains and rivers, the attributes inside were actually very simple. To put it bluntly, it was beautiful. The real inside was not like the real world outside, which had all kinds of energy. Now that he had condensed this planet, it was like the real world outside. It seemed like it could even condense life. Of course, it was just a feeling. It was too difficult to actually condense it. However, it was not a problem for many living beings to cultivate inside. The environment here was very good, many times better than the outside world. Under the crazy acceleration mode, it did not take more than a few days for the planets in his body to condense successfully, forming an extremely huge planet. However, it was not the size of the previous 5 planets put together. Instead, it became smaller. Logically speaking, the accumulated energy of the 5 planets should be larger. Now, it became smaller, but it condensed more terrifying energy. It was much more solid than before, and its grade had even shot up to rank 6 in one go. Absorbing the rank 6 energy from the outside world could naturally increase the power of the core in his body to the rank 6 level. It could not possibly decrease, right? I finally succeeded. Is this the planet condensed by the 5 elements? Tianyun was excited. He could clearly feel the energy in his body had greatly increased. His cultivation did not change, but his cohesion had greatly increased. If he could unleash the power of the 5 elements in his body, it would definitely be far more effective than before. The key was that he had succeeded. He had successfully completed this mission. He had successfully completed it before the start of the Divine Territory battle. Immediately, he stood up and walked toward the 5 elements. At this time, he did not feel any sense of danger. After all, the 5 elements had already been assimilated. It was impossible for him to completely absorb the 5 elements, but it was not a problem for him to be recognized. After being acknowledged, he would be able to pass this trial. He wouldn't have to completely suck the 5 elemental cores dry. To achieve this step, his current cultivation was still far from enough. If his original cultivation was a little stronger, perhaps the condensation speed would have increased a lot. Fortunately, he had crazy mode to make up for it. Otherwise, it would have ended in failure. This was a blessing in disguise. Otherwise, it would really be troublesome. Congratulations on completing the 5 elements core trial. You have become the true ruler of the mortal world. At this moment, a beam of golden light enveloped him. At the same time, a mark appeared in the void and was branded on his forehead. This brand disappeared in the blink of an eye, as if nothing had appeared on it. Following that, a surge of memories surged into his mind, causing him to close his eyes and carefully comprehend the contents within. After a long time, he slowly opened his eyes. So the mortal realm is actually so frightening. This level of power can't even be considered mortal. This memory was telling him how to activate the power of the mortal realm. As for the details, he didn't say anything. He didn't even mention anything about the reincarnation pool or other miscellaneous matters. It was clear that even if he obtained the 5 elemental core trial, he still wouldn't be able to obtain the truth. Ding! You have successfully completed the special mission, become the Mortal World Controller. You have obtained the title, Mortal World Controller. You will be able to activate the strongest effect of the mortal world. The rest of the rewards, nothing. Mortal World Controller has absolute control over the mortal realm. Can control the souls of the mortal realm at will. Can go to any region to reincarnate, or reconstruct the body. At the same time, can control the power of the 5 elements core to counterattack. Control the soul to reincarnate. Tianyun thought that it would be very powerful, but it turned out that there was a special effect that could control the soul to reincarnate to any region in the three realms. Currently, it was up to him to control. But it didn't mean much, because those who surpassed the Saint King stage could not reincarnate, so it didn't mean much to him. Unless this limit was raised to a higher level, then it would have a little meaning. But there was another effect that was really amazing, and that was to reconstruct the body. This meant that those who were in the Saint King stage and below could reconstruct the body at will. Even he was shocked by this point. This was the only way to show how powerful a title was. I hope the effect will increase in the future. If that's the case, I will really become an army of the undead. Tianyun thought of that scene and was excited. No matter how he died, as long as the soul in the three realms was reconstructed. In the face of such an army, who would dare to act recklessly? But he soon noticed a small line of words at the back. The content was, for every 1,000 souls reborn, there is a cooldown time of 100 years. I thought it would be infinite rebirth, but it seems that I was too naive. There is still a cooldown time. Tianyun shook his head, but it didn't mean much to him for the time being. Those whose cultivation was too low basically didn't need to participate in the battle, so there wouldn't be too much danger. But it was better than nothing. Maybe it would be useful in the future. Rumble. At this time, the sound of the door opening came from the front, attracting his attention. On the back of the five elements core, two big channels were opened, and two forces rushed out. One of them was full of light, and the other was full of cold, two completely different forces. The power of light and dark. Tianyun's eyes narrowed. He immediately felt what the other two trials were. There is no doubt that one of them should be the light core, and the other should be the dark core. These are two super rare cores, and they can combine to form the strongest existence. He didn't expect such a rare core to be dug out and placed in the three realms. Heaven represented the light core, the mortal world represented the five elements core, and the underworld represented the dark core. No matter which core, they were all super rare existences. If one had all of them, he would be an invincible existence. The premise was that he could control all of them. If he could control them, he would definitely become a super overlord. Too powerful. The more I understand, the more terrifying I feel. Seems like this is the treasure left behind by that almighty being. Tianyun's eyes were filled with excitement. He hadn't seen such a shocking treasure in a long time. When he obtained the five elements core and found out about its power, he was already shocked. What if he could control all of them? What kind of power would it reach? Chapter 1371. Tianyun walked to the back of the core. If it was before, he wouldn't have been able to get close at all. If he got close, his soul would be destroyed by the violent energy. Even if he didn't die, he would become an idiot. Now that he was one, he could pass through the core and come to the back. When he came to the back, the feeling was even stronger. The energy of light and darkness was constantly being released from the front. When he got close, he felt a sense of pressure coming from the front. It made him feel pressured and it was hard to move forward. There's no way to get in. Tianyun frowned. He thought that he could pass two trials in one go. It seemed like he was too naive. The trial ahead was even more terrifying. When the energy was released, Tianyun felt like his skin was disappearing. If he continued to enter, there was no doubt that his soul would be destroyed. The energy ahead was too strong. It wasn't something he could advance with his current standard. Ding! Successfully accepted the special mission, pass trial of light or dark. Successfully completed the mission and obtained the title, Heaven Realm Controller or Netherworld Controller. The rewards were the same. There weren't any changes. He didn't even get any extra experience points. The mission is split into two. It seems like I have to complete two more to become the real owner of this place. Tianyun wasn't surprised. As mentioned before, after absorbing this place, he could only be considered as the mortal realm controller. This meant that there was still the title of Heaven Realm Controller or Netherworld Controller. If that was the case, then there would be two trials. Now that he couldn't participate in them, he had to raise his cultivation base to continue. It seemed like he could only give up now. It's about time to leave. Yi Tianyun didn't stay here for long. He stepped into the special teleportation circle and disappeared from the area. Shortly after, his soul returned to his body. Nothing seemed to have changed. Finally back to my own body. It's still the most comfortable to stay in my own body. Yi Tianyun twisted his body and loosened his bones. This body seemed to be meditating here. It looked like his soul had left his body, but in reality, it was still connected and not truly separated. However, he felt that he could enter that place with his physical body. It was just that he didn't have the authority to enter. Shortly after, his figure flashed and he returned to his hall. Shi Shuyan happened to be here dealing with some matters. When she saw him appear, her beautiful eyes were filled with reproach. Finally willing to come back. This is the longest time you have been away in history. He had been gone for more than 50 years. It had never been so long in the past. I've been cultivating in seclusion for a long time. My apologies. Yi Tianyun walked over with a smile. Shi Shuyan was just grumbling casually. It was nothing much. As long as Yi Tianyun was safe, that was enough for her. After all, with their cultivation, 50 years was basically equivalent to 5 days. It was not a long time. Forget it. Right now, the situation in the Three Realms God realm is steadily improving. Most cultivators' cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. There are more than 30 Earth Monarchs. There are more than 10 Lord of Heaven realm cultivators. As for Star Venerates, there are. Yi Tianyun nodded. After hearing about it, his cultivation had indeed improved by leaps and bounds. His overall strength was already comparable to a Grade 2 God realm. Furthermore, he had reached this level in a short 50 years. Of course, there was still a long way to go before he could reach the higher end of a Grade 2 God realm. However, with Yi Tianyun present, this gap would be filled immediately. With an existence comparable to a heavenly venerate, he was already stronger than most Grade 2 God realms. However, Grade 2 God realms usually had Grade 3 God realms as their backing. In theory, they were still inferior. Seems like your overall breakthrough is not bad. Yi Tianyun's eyes lit up. After a while, your overall strength will definitely be comparable to a Grade 2 God realm. Right. We have abundant resources, and we are very proactive in our cultivation. We all responded to your call and cultivated fervently. This result is somewhat unexpected. Everyone's cultivation is breaking through very quickly. Shi Shuyan was also a little excited. Seeing her own faction growing stronger, she naturally felt excited and full of confidence. Very good. In that case, I will continue refining pills and speed up my progress. Yi Tianyun nodded. Now that most of the things were done, all that was left was to wait for the battle of the divine realms. Shi Shuyan nodded and continued with her work. Yi Tianyun also began to busy himself with alchemy, and immersed himself in alchemy. There were alchemists in the Three Realms, but their refining speed was limited. In addition, there were many cultivators, so there was a relatively large gap. Otherwise, Yi Tianyun would not have spent time refining pills. Time passed quickly. Yi Tianyun was completely focused on refining pills. During this time, the other God realms quieted down. There was no communication at all. Everyone was busy. In fact, there were still a few decades before the Battle of the Divine Realms. The situation was still relatively urgent. Whether or not it would affect the Three Realms, they had to be prepared. The news he received from various sources was the same. The God Realms were all making their own preparations. Among them, the God Realms that allied with the Three Realms all sent envoys to discuss the situation. It was relatively simple. When the Battle of the Divine Realms happened, they hoped that they could help each other. If there was a problem with one side, they hoped that they could find a place to hide. They did not have extravagant hopes of helping them resist, just a place to hide. If they resisted, who could resist the battle of Grade 3 God realms? They could only hide without any resistance. The atmosphere is getting heavier. It's about time to head over to the Heavenly Spring God realm and inform Sister Lu Li of the situation. Yi Tianyun had promised Lu Li Region Master not to join a Grade 3 God realm. He did not break his promise and directly participated in the battle of the Divine Realms. There was no connection between the two. Back then, Lu Li Region Master did not expect that Yi Tianyun would participate in the battle of the Divine Realms. She only advised him not to join a Grade 3 God realm. After refining a batch of elixirs and giving instructions, he went to the Heavenly Spring God realm to look for Lu Li Region Master. The Heavenly Spring God realm was also strengthening in all aspects. Most of the disciples had returned from outside and could not go out anymore. Heavenly Cloud Region Master, you are finally back. We have been looking for you for a long time. Lord Region Master said that all elders and disciples must come back. Elder Go Huang heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Yi Tianyun return. Where is Lu Li Region Master? I have something important to discuss with her, Yi Tianyun asked. What is it? I was just about to have a meeting. It's perfect that you are back. We can discuss it together. Elder Go Huang did not know the purpose of Yi Tianyun's return. He thought that Yi Tianyun had returned from training. Chapter 1372. Yi Tianyun, Elder Go Huang, and the rest entered the meeting room. Region Lord Glaze had been waiting for a long time. When she saw Yi Tianyun enter, she smiled faintly. You're back. Region Lord Glaze smiled faintly. Yes, I'm back. Yi Tianyun exchanged a smile with her. There was no need for words. Simple eye contact was enough. Then, they quickly made arrangements. After all the elders had taken their seats, Region Lord Glaze looked at them and said in a low voice, it's actually very simple to gather all the elders here. I believe that everyone has heard the rumors, right? In less than 50 years, the Battle of God's Domain will officially begin. All the elders nodded, indicating that they already knew. This news spread like wildfire. Other than Fan Yu's forces, almost all the forces in the Divine Domain knew about it. This was not the first time the Divine Domain War was held. Therefore, every time it was about to begin, everyone was worried that they would be implicated. Those who were more timid would directly hide in the ordinary realm. It was undoubtedly safer there. Since everyone knows, I have nothing more to say. Basically, all the disciples and elders are not allowed to go out during this period of time. All of them are to stay here and prepare. For example, in terms of defense, we must be fully prepared. Resistance and the like must be done. What we are facing is not the attack of a Grade 3 God realm, nor are we defending against them. We are the lackeys of a Grade 3 God realm, the Grade 2 God realm. Region Lord Glaze said in a low voice, what we need to guard against are these Grade 2 God realms. We are not relying on any Grade 3 forces. Recently, there have been many Grade 3 forces trying to recruit us, but I rejected them all. If we agree, it means that we are betting on them. Once they are destroyed, we will be the ones to suffer. It can even be said that when the Divine Domain War starts, as their subordinates, we will be easily attacked. Choosing a team was very important. Once they chose the wrong team, it would be troublesome. Therefore, until now, the Heavenly Spring Divine Domain had not joined any Grade 3 God realms. Similarly, not choosing a team would also attract all kinds of trouble. That was, all kinds of methods used by the Grade 3 God realms to make things difficult or force them. The further he went, the stronger the coercion became. It was almost time for the Divine Realm War. They needed more powerhouses and more troops. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to win this war. We support Region Lord Glaze's idea. Randomly joining a Grade 3 God realm has never led to a good end, one of the elders chimed in. The other elders nodded in agreement. In the past wars of the Divine Realm, it had never been a good thing. The ones who suffered were always the weaker influences. Hence, during this period of time, we need to strengthen our defenses and make breakthroughs in our strength in order to stabilize the upcoming divine domain war. If we can stabilize ourselves, then in the future we will also have a chance to participate in the divine realm war. They weren't afraid of death and also wanted to participate in the divine realm war. But with their qualifications, they simply weren't qualified enough. When they reached grade 3 God Realm, they would be able to participate in the God Realm battle. For a grade 3 God Realm expert, this battle was a battle for honor. Pa pa pa, at this time, the sound of applause came from the gate. Everyone turned their heads and saw an unfamiliar face standing at their door. Many people didn't even notice when this person had come in. Tianyun knew, but he didn't act immediately. Instead, he observed what the other party wanted to do. Well said. I roughly understand your intention to participate in the Divine Realm War. Divine Lord Yilong stood out and sneered. However, I don't have that many choices for you. Either be destroyed now, or join our Sacred Peak God Realm. Sacred Peak God Realm. Yi Tianyun's gaze turned cold. He immediately recalled that a long time ago, when the divine beast of the starfield came to capture people, it was actually from the Sacred Peak God Realm. This was all told to him by the divine Emperor Yuqin. After such a long time, what exactly had happened to the divine Emperor Yuqin? The divine Emperor Yuqin had helped him a lot in the past, but he had always been under their control, unable to break free. He was probably still in the Sacred Peak God Realm, serving this disgusting Sacred Peak God Realm. But now, the Sacred Peak God Realm couldn't sit still and directly came to threaten him. Isn't your Sacred Peak Divine Realm too arrogant? Do you think the other God Realms don't exist? Colored Glaze Region Master stood up. The aura of a heavenly venerable pressed over, causing Divine Lord Yilong to stagger and almost fall to the ground. Colored Glaze Region Master had successfully broken through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm, becoming a trump card. With a Heavenly Venerable present, he could indeed protect a God Realm existence. Congratulations, Colored Glaze Region Master. The elders were overjoyed. They didn't know that Colored Glaze Region Master had already broken through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm. This way, the Heavenly Spring God Realm would have more confidence. Yi Tianyun smiled. He already knew. Colored Glaze Region Master breaking through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm was a sure thing. Indeed, after cultivating for a while, he had successfully broken through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm. Heavenly Venerable. Divine Lord Yilong's face darkened. He hadn't expected there to be a Heavenly Venerable here. However, he was still extremely arrogant. Even so, I have just broken through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm. I can't protect the Heavenly Spring God Realm. Plus, you have a Heavenly Venerable, but we don't. At this time, a black shadow slowly appeared at the side, appearing in front of everyone without anyone noticing. An extremely strong pressure emitted from his body, spreading in all directions. In the entire conference hall, the elders felt a sense of helplessness. This helplessness was the feeling of futility in struggling. No matter how they struggled, it was useless. Divine Lord cultivation was strong, but facing a Heavenly Venerable, it was trash. Colored Glaze Region Master's face changed slightly. The opponent was actually at the middle stage Heavenly Venerable Realm. He was much stronger than her, who had just broken through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm. The two of them couldn't be compared. Elder Shihong, I'll leave this place to you. Divine Lord Yilong's face was full of regret. He had thought that Elder Shihong wouldn't need to take action, but now it seemed that he had thought too much. Okay. Heavenly Venerable Shihong stood up and said indifferently, it seems that you still have some confidence. It's a little beyond my expectations. No wonder you rejected the recruitment from other God realms. With a Heavenly Venerable, you do have some confidence. However, this confidence seems insignificant in front of us. I don't like to talk nonsense. I'll repeat what Divine Lord Yilong said just now. Either be destroyed or surrender. We aren't afraid of the other god realms. Our sacred peak god realm is the strongest god realm in this god realm battle. We have never been afraid of anyone. Chapter 1373. Heavenly Venerate Shi Hong's words made the faces of all the elders sink. One had to admit that the sacred peak god domain was indeed domineering. Among the many grade 3 god domains, it could be considered one of the strongest. It even had a divine beast of the star field, which proved that it was not simple. Unless it was an extremely powerful god domain, it was impossible to possess a divine beast of the star domain. As for being afraid of the other divine regions, it wasn't a problem for Heavenly Venerate Shi Hong. In any case, they would have to fight sooner or later. It wouldn't be a problem for them to fall out with the other divine territories. What Region Master Colored Glaze said was that the other god realms also had their eyes on this place. If they were to force their way in, it would be equivalent to not giving them face. They didn't use force, so why did the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm use force? If the other divine realms didn't act forcefully, they would dare to act forcefully. The main thing was that they had the strength to crush and resist everything. The sacred peak celestial territory did have such strength, and it wasn't celestial Venerable Shi Hong's nonsense. A slightly weaker rank, 3/4 would not dare to say that. Since he was so confident, it meant that he had many Empyrean powerhouses. Empyrean powerhouses were the key strength of the divine realm. They were existences that could sweep away all obstacles. Having more Empyreans was the way of the king. This did not mean that a divine realm only needed an Empyrean. Without a steady stream of new bloodlines, it would definitely lead to destruction. There were enough fresh bloodlines and experts in the sacred peak god realm. Moreover, they often went to plunder geniuses, so how could they be weak? In the previous ascending battle, the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm had snatched the top 10 places. Just this alone was a huge blow to the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm. The Sacred Peak Divine Realm is indeed overbearing. You stole our disciple before, and now you're shamelessly threatening us. Region Master Lu Li sneered, I have to say, your Sacred Peak Divine Realm is really used to being overbearing. So what if we snatch your disciples? With your abilities, you will only waste the potential of a large number of geniuses. Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong sneered. He didn't care that the Region Mistress Glaze said that they were thick-skinned. Instead, he retorted. These words were like someone who had picked a good spirit herb and snatched it from you so that you wouldn't waste it. This kind of theory was really strange, and it filled their hearts with anger. Only the sacred peak celestial territory would talk about snatching people in such a dignified manner. They had spent so much money to organize all kinds of divine realm competitions, all for the sake of filtering out new bloodlines. Now, it had been snatched away without any compensation. It was really displeasing. If it weren't for the sacred peak celestial territory's strength, the other celestial territories would have joined forces to teach the sacred peak celestial territory a lesson. What a good one. Snatching away our disciple, you're afraid that we'll waste him. Region Lord Glaze was about to explode from anger. Her personality was just like this. She really couldn't stand such things. Today, we will choose to refuse. No matter what God's domain comes, we will refuse. If we really force our way through, we'll fight to the end. Even if a grade 3 God realm expert came to threaten her, she would still resist without fear. The rest of the elders stood straight, similarly unafraid of these grade 3 God realm masters. From their point of view, they couldn't give up their dignity even if they had to fight to the death. If worst comes to worst, they'll just fight until the last one dies. Even if they can drag the grade 3 God realm down with them, every last one counts. The reason why the grade 3 God realms that had tried to recruit Huang Xiaolong did not dare to act recklessly was because they were afraid that the grade 2 God realms would retaliate. Even if they won, it would be troublesome if something happened at this critical juncture. The battle of the God realms required strength. If there were any losses, not only would it lower their morale, it would also affect their combat strength. They wouldn't force this kind of unfavorable situation. Heavenly Venerable Shurhong narrowed his eyes as he looked at them. After staring at them for a moment, he smiled faintly and said, "Is that so? What if the rest of the elders stand on our side?" Heavenly Venerable Shurhong clapped his hands. Very quickly, several elders walked over and stood behind Heavenly Venerable Shurhong. Among them were some of the more senior elders. "You guys." When Elder Go Huang looked at them, the anger in his heart surged to the point that his eyes were about to spit fire. Betrayers had always been the most disgusting thing to them. But now, it had happened to them. 5 to 6 elders had betrayed them, and one of them was the more respected third elder. Regent Lord Glaze, I feel that we need to consider everything at length. The overall strength of the Sacred Peak God Realm is very strong. If we can join them or attach ourselves to them, after the Battle of the God Realms ends, we will naturally become a Grade 3 God Realm. With the Sacred Peak God Realm as our backing, no one will dare to bully us. The third elder's eyes were filled with coldness. He looked at Regent Lord Glaze without a shred of respect. They had already joined the Sacred Peak God Realm and weren't afraid of Regent Lord Glaze and the rest. Even if they joined later, they would have an extremely high status and greater authority. How authority was defined would be managed by the Sacred Peak God Realm. Naturally, there was no need to worry. That's right. A wise man submits to circumstances. We can reject the recruitment of other God Realms, but the Sacred Peak God Realm is different. We have absolute power. We can basically win this battle of the God Realms. Regent Lord Glaze, just agree to it. Don't resist pointlessly. That will only make your fate more miserable and cause more casualties. These betrayers kept persuading her. It was difficult for them to break through to a higher level. Choosing to join another God Realm was undoubtedly a better choice. By relying on the Sacred Peak God Realm, they would definitely be able to obtain more resources and improve themselves. It was difficult to advance in the Heavenly Spring God Realm and couldn't continue to improve. Swish! A cold light pierced through and sent the third elder flying, pinning him to the wall. Everything happened so quickly and decisively. In the blink of an eye, the third elder was pinned to the wall. This attack was launched by Regent Lord Glaze. She didn't say a single word to these betrayers. She immediately used a ruthless move and pinned the third elder to the wall. The blue ribbon in her hand had already turned into a sharp sword and pierced through his body. Trash, die. The colored glaze region master fiercely swung the ribbon in her hand, wanting to cut him into two at the waist. Suddenly, a faster figure fiercely slapped the ribbon with a palm. With a bang sound, the ribbon directly exploded into two pieces. At the same time, the elder who was pinned to the wall fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. The one who attacked was Shi Tianzuanhong. His face was gloomy. He didn't expect Regent Lord Glaze to attack so quickly. He didn't even have time to react. He thought that Regent Lord Glaze would be desperate and angry. In the end, she would choose to compromise. Now, it seemed like he was too naive. Regent Lord Glaze wouldn't compromise at all. Chapter 1374. Regent Master Glaze, it seems like you're really stubborn. Heavenly Venerable Shurhong's expression was ugly. Even if he looked down on these traitors, they had joined his side. Now that they were almost killed in front of him, how could his expression be good? That's how we deal with traitors. Regent Master Glaze's gaze was cold. Don't talk to me about, a wise man submits to circumstances. It's all bullshit. Traitors are traitors. Don't think I don't know that you're doing this for your own benefit. You feel that you can't do anything, so you chose to join a third-grade God Realm. Do you really think it's for the good of the Heavenly Spring God Realm? Tui. Regent Master Glaze had a fiery temper. She didn't let anyone off, especially when she said it so bluntly. It made the traitors' faces turn green and white. It was obvious that she had hit the nail on the head. Not only that, but they were also afraid of the Sacred Peak God Realm. They didn't want to die. They wanted to choose a more stable backer. If they made the right bet, they would enjoy amazing treatment after the battle. Region Master Glaze, don't be too stubborn. We have our own thoughts, but it's for the good of the Heavenly Spring God Realm. If we made the right bet, our Heavenly Spring God Realm will soar and enter the third grade God Realm in advance. That's right. Why do you have to do this? The Sacred Peak God Realm is so strong. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. You even hurt the third elder. They were indignant at Region Master Glaze, feeling that she was stubborn and uncivilized. What a joke. Do you really think that only the Sacred Peak God Realm has a chance? The Myriad Heaven God Realm is also a strong competitor. Don't think I don't know. Compared to the Sacred Peak God Realm, I favor the Myriad Heaven God Realm more. Moreover, they're all masters. Do you really think they'll help us soar? If we're just a subsidiary from the start, I'd still believe you. Maybe they already have representatives from other God Realms in their hearts. It definitely won't be us. Those who joined temporarily would definitely not be treated as well as those who joined previously. Dream on if they wanted to become third grade God Realm immediately. In her opinion, they could only be cannon fodder. Heavenly Venerable Shihong narrowed his eyes. He was actually shocked. He didn't expect her to be right. Some were hot-headed and immediately joined, but in the end, they were just cannon fodder. The traitorous elder was startled, but after thinking about it carefully, he realized that it did make sense. It's impossible for us to abandon you. Moreover, if we want to obtain benefits, we must fight. As long as the battle is over, I will definitely give you the best treatment. We don't care about the Myriad Heaven Celestial Region. Heavenly Venerable Shihong immediately shouted to prevent the elders from wavering. Moreover, things have already come to this. Your third elder was almost killed. Do you think that even if you give up, the Glazed Region Lord will choose to let you go? Heavenly Venerable Shihong sneered incessantly. Once some things started, there was no turning back. The elders looked at the heavily injured third elder. The third elder had almost been killed. If they chose to return, they would probably suffer the same fate as the third elder. Traitors always died the worst. Ignore her. Kill them and seize control of this place. The third elder had already crawled up. Fortunately, Celestial Lord Shihong had saved him. Otherwise, he would have definitely died. Under the ferocious attacks of a Heavenly Venerable, it wouldn't be fun. Heavenly Venerable Shihong ignored his words. Instead, he looked at the Glazed Region Lord and the rest and said, I will give you one last chance. Choose to surrender or choose to die. Don't think that I really don't dare to touch you. A mere Heavenly Venerable is nothing to me. He didn't want to waste a Heavenly Venerable, let alone so many experts. If he used them as cannon fodder, he could kill quite a number of people with a single blast. Ah! At this moment, a blood-curdling scream was heard. Everyone quickly turned their heads and saw a figure standing beside the third elder. The figure held a spear in his hand and pierced the third elder's head until it exploded. The person who was so daring in front of a Heavenly Venerable was none other than Yi Tianyun. Unknowingly, he had already arrived in front of the third elder and killed the third elder in an instant. Traitors shouldn't speak so much. Yi Tianyun looked at Heavenly Venerable Shihong indifferently. Speaking of which, you stole my words. I really don't care about a mere Heavenly Venerable. His tone was so casual. Even if Heavenly Venerable Shihong was a mid-level lower Heavenly Venerable, he really didn't care about him. What third-grade God domain? Have you heard of the evil spirit God domain? Didn't he still destroy them? Their eyes narrowed. Even the Glazed Region Lord didn't know when Yi Tianyun had gone over. She had been thinking of ways to break through the defensive line and kill these traitors. However, Heavenly Venerable Shihong blocked in front of her. His spiritual perception was already activated, so her sneak attack didn't succeed like before. Yet, under such circumstances, Yi Tianyun still killed the traitors as though he was in a no-man's land. This was undoubtedly a heavy slap in the face. Who are you? Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong's pores immediately widened, and his eyes were filled with vigilance. To be able to kill someone in front of him, his strength was definitely not simple. Me? I'm the Deputy Region Lord here. Yi Tianyun grinned and said, at the same time, I'm also the Region Lord of another god domain. It just so happens that we will be enemies in the future. If I get rid of you now, things will be much simpler in the future. Not to mention Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong, even the glazed Region Lord and the rest were shocked by Yi Tianyun's words. These words were equivalent to declaring war with the sacred peak god domain. Moreover, it was a declaration of war in the god domain, which meant that they wouldn't rest until one party was dead. The battle of the divine realm was a battle to the death, a battle that would continue until the very last moment. The Region Lord of another god domain? Which god domain? Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong's eyes sank. He wasn't in a hurry to make a move, as he had to clarify everything first. I don't know if you have heard of the name of a new god domain, the Three Realms god domain. I'm the Region Lord there, a Region Lord who is about to participate in the god domain war. Yi Tianyun said indifferently. The Region Lord of the Three Realms god domain? They were instantly stunned. They had indeed heard of this, but a first-grade god domain wasn't eye-catching, so they didn't pay much attention to it. Ha ha ha, what a joke. A first-grade god domain dares to be arrogant in front of me? Die. Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong extended his hand and grabbed. Unknowingly, a wave of energy had already enveloped Yi Tianyun's surroundings and slammed towards him. If he was hit, he would definitely become a meat patty. Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong wasn't a fool. How could he not be prepared for such a dangerous enemy? Chapter 1375. Yi Tianyun's five elements power was rather heaven-defying. After he absorbed the five elements core, as long as he knew the other party's attribute, he would immediately release the attribute that countered it, forming a type of attribute suppression. In particular, the grade of the five elements core was 6th grade. Most cultivators' planets were at most 2nd grade or 3rd grade. Against a 6th grade core, it was an all-around suppression. This suppression could be experienced in the data, which was a 50% increase in power. Hence, under this attack, Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong realized that his power was suppressed, and he couldn't release his power. He could have fought with Yi Tianyun, but unfortunately, he was too careless. Who would have thought that a divine monarch-level expert would be able to unleash such a terrifying power? Save me, Heavenly Venerable Siyuan. Heavenly Venerate Shi Hong shouted. However, before his voice could travel out, an even more terrifying power burst forth from within, blasting Heavenly Venerate Shi Hong into a mist of blood. He didn't even have a chance to be reborn. At the same time, Yi Tianyun reached out and took away all the treasures on him, including the Heavenly Venerable spiritual treasure that he didn't have time to use. Ordinary Heavenly Venerables would have Heavenly Venerable spiritual treasures. But Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong didn't even have a chance to use it before he was killed. Ding! Successfully killed Heavenly Venerable Shi Hong, obtained 80,000 compressed experience points, 1,000 compressed crazy points, 1,000 compressed SPs, obtained Heaven Rainbow Venerable Treasure, Heavenly Venerable Spiritual Treasure, Saint Peak God Realm Information Record, 50 times experience card. Leapfrogging kill, obtained additional 50,000 compressed experience points. This time, the reward for leapfrogging kill was different, as if it depended on his mood. But to him, this was still very satisfactory. It was better than nothing. Swoosh! At this time, a sharp murderous aura descended on Yi Tianyun. Yi Tianyun didn't hesitate to swing his spear, the 5 elements core and the crazy damage mode burst out, and the spear shot out violently. Dong! An explosive energy exploded in the hall. Region Lord Lioli had sharp eyes and quick hands. Actually, when Celestial Venerable Hong shouted, he had already dragged the Elder at the side to hide to the side. At the same time, he activated the thick protective shield and threw out all kinds of treasures. As for the traitorous elders, they were not so lucky. They were immediately affected by this terrifying power and were sent flying, heavily injured. He wasn't dead, but he was close to it. When the power of two Empyrean-level beings erupted, even if they didn't die, they would only be left with a single breath. Pa pa pa, the protective shield on Glazed Region Master's side was constantly being battered by this energy. Faintly, cracks had already appeared, and it was on the verge of shattering. Just as it was about to shatter, the explosion stopped. Right now, the originally luxurious hall had already been reduced to ruins. The guards outside were all affected. Some were dead, and some were injured. It was a tragic sight to behold. The power of a heavenly venerate erupted here. These people with low cultivation bases simply couldn't withstand it. After the explosion, the two figures bounced away and appeared in everyone's line of sight. There was an unfamiliar figure. Without a doubt, this person was the heavenly venerable Si Yuan that celestial venerable Hong had just called out. No wonder he was so arrogant. With two heavenly venerates here, they were basically assured of obtaining a grade 2 god realm. Even if there were other heavenly venerates present, they wouldn't have to worry. Especially since heavenly venerable Si Yuan was a late-stage lower heavenly venerable expert, who was much stronger than Region Lord Lioli. I didn't expect a Region Lord of a grade 1 god realm to have such power. This is really an eye-opener for me. Heavenly venerable Si Yuan looked like a middle-aged man. His clothes fluttered slightly, revealing the sturdy armor underneath. This wasn't any armor, but a kind of self-protection. Heavenly venerable Si Yuan was from the demon race. He was a beetle-type demon race. He was covered in thick armor that was incomparably sturdy. It was already equivalent to a heavenly venerable spiritual treasure. I knew that there would be helpers hiding at the side. After so long, you finally decided to come out. If the two of you had appeared together, this wouldn't have happened. Yi Tianyun had long sensed that there was a powerhouse hiding at the side, but he hadn't exposed it. He just wanted to see when that fellow would come out. They had done this to leave a backup plan. If anyone tried to escape, Heavenly Venerable Hong would immediately come out and suppress them, creating the effect of surrounding and killing them. Who knew that it would backfire and result in Heavenly Venerable Hong's death? If he had been closer, it wouldn't have been much of a problem for him to rescue him given his strength. Heavenly Venerable Si Yuan's heart sank. In fact, he still wanted to fight with Yi Tianyun. However, after the battle just now, he realized that there was no way he could win. If they were to continue fighting, he really wouldn't know who would win. It was even possible that he would die. While he was thinking about what to do, Region Lord Lioli and the others were really dumbfounded. Putting aside how Yi Tianyun had become the Region Lord of the Three Realms Sacred Realm, just his strength alone was already beyond their imagination. Isn't this Heavenly Cloud Region Lord too strong? Cutting up a Heavenly Venerable is like cutting tofu. Just now, he even fought with such a powerful Heavenly Venerable without any problems. How did he cultivate? Wasn't the strength he displayed just a half-step to Heavenly Venerable? Isn't the difference too big now? These elders were shocked, wondering if their eyes were playing tricks on them. Previously, he wasn't very strong, but now he was as strong as a heaven-defying Heavenly Venerable. He hid his strength. Region Lord Lioli immediately guessed this. She felt that Yi Tianyun had hidden his strength. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to reach such a level in just a few decades. Hiding his strength? What's the point? The elders were puzzled. Isn't it the point now? The other party thinks that the Heavenly Cloud Region Lord is too weak. One careless mistake, and he will lose his life. Region Lord Lioli smiled. Now it's interesting. I didn't expect that the Heavenly Spring Sacred Realm would ultimately be saved by one person. She shook her head. Previously, she had thought that she would nurture Yi Tianyun for a while, and when he slowly broke through, he would then become the successor. Now it seemed that she was too naive. With Yi Tianyun's strength, let alone being a deputy region lord, he was more than qualified to be a region lord. In other words, he wouldn't even be qualified to be a Grade 2 region lord. Because Yi Tianyun's words just now proved his ambition to participate in the Battle of the Divine Realms. They didn't have the guts to participate in the Battle of the Divine Realms, but Yi Tianyun dared to do so, which proved that his strength was definitely not simple. What's wrong? You don't want to fight anymore? Yi Tianyun said indifferently, or, you can choose to inform them about the situation here. If you want to escape, I don't think they will give you that chance. Yi Tianyun grinned. How could he let go of such a fat sheep? Moreover, it was a hostile force. This hostile force also had something to do with the Death God realm and the Evil Spirit realm. Chapter 1376. Other than hiding, Heavenly Venerable Godkiller had descended to help the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm win the battle of the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm. The Evil Spirit Sacred Realm was the same. They all had connections with the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm, and many of their powerhouses held important positions in the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm. Therefore, when the Evil Spirit Sacred Realm was destroyed, they went crazy and kept searching for the culprit. At first, they thought it was Heavenly Venerable Godkiller's doing and even went to the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm to take revenge. Who knew that in the end, the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm would suffer even more? Their wishes were denied and their people died. Therefore, the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm could be so arrogant mainly because they had the support of many sacred realms. Some had chosen to join the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm early on. It could be said that it was a mixed sacred realm with all kinds of forces. This way, when they snatched the token core, they could all go to the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm. Because it was so mixed, the forces there were quite strong. There were probably more than a dozen Heavenly Venerables, definitely ahead of the other sacred realms. Some of them could not participate in the snatching of the token core. Just like Heavenly Venerable Swordsea and the others had said, they could not interfere. If they did, they would lose their qualifications. It was completely different for those who had entered the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm to come down and help. Don't try to challenge the intelligence of the heavens. It would not be wrong. Under such circumstances, the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm still had many Heavenly Venerables. This was the reason for their arrogance. They were not afraid of the myriad Heaven Sacred Realm, much less the other Sacred Peak Sacred Realm. If they had the ability, come. Correspondingly, if the Heavenly Spring Sacred Realm joined, they would probably not have a chance to enjoy anything. There were so many sacred realms that had helped them, and the benefits would definitely be shared with them. As for the Heavenly Spring Sacred Realm, they probably would not even get a drop of soup. When he heard this news, Yi Tianyun memorized these sacred realms one by one. They would become his opponents in the future, so he had to be vigilant. Now that the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm's Heavenly Venerables had arrived, he would kill them in advance. He did not want to let the tiger return to the mountain. You think you can keep me here? Siyuan Heavenly Lord laughed. He thought that Yi Tianyun was too arrogant. Even if they fought just now, he didn't think that Yi Tianyun could beat him. He had absolute confidence in his strength and defense. Even so, he still took out a jade pendant and fiercely crushed it, sending out the information here. He wasn't afraid of being defeated, but he still had to send some information back first so that they could understand the situation here and discuss countermeasures. At the very least, it was impossible to subdue the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm. He had to use forceful methods. Won't you know once you try? Yi Tianyun grinned and quickly swung the starry divine spear in his hand. The core power of the 5 elements in his body burst out once again, and the dragon god bloodline was fully unleashed. It was impossible to kill a late-stage lower heavenly venerate powerhouse without expending some effort. Unless his cultivation base was a few levels higher, there were some things that needed to be done. Boom! After erupting, Yi Tianyun's body radiated a powerful aura. Layers of thick scales covered the surface of his body as he charged towards Heavenly Venerate Siyuan. Heavenly Venerate Siyuan's pupils constricted. He hadn't expected Yi Tianyun to be able to erupt with even greater power. All out! Heavenly Venerate Siyuan bellowed. A black shell floated up from his hand. It looked unassuming, but it was actually his exclusive heavenly venerate spiritual treasure. After the black shell appeared, he immediately put it on his body. Thick armor appeared on his body, and his aura rose by a large margin. This heavenly venerate spiritual treasure not only increased his defense, but it could also increase his power. In an instant, he really turned into a giant beetle and charged over. Sky-slaying divine art, destroy. Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed as he displayed the martial arts he had fused with the fusion system mode. This extracted the best effect and gathered all the advantages into one body. Its power was directly stacked to a heaven-defying level. However, this wasn't the most important thing. His opponent's attribute was the earth attribute, so the core power of the 5 elements in his body immediately surged out to restrain it. In an instant, the suppression of the attributes was stacked once again. The effect was 50 times. How could this be? Heavenly Venerate Siyuan hadn't even clashed with Yi Tianyun's attack when he felt a power that could annihilate him pressing in all directions. The fear of death welled up in his heart. He hadn't even clashed with Luo Yunyang yet, but he already felt like he had to escape. He also felt like he had no way of resisting. This feeling of being unable to resist was only felt when he was facing an existence at the level of his own master. Run! He didn't think any further. Black wings immediately sprouted from his back as he turned around and fled into the void. However, how could he be faster than Yi Tianyun? A mere beetle wants to escape from my hands. The sky was already filled with destructive power. This was the power of the fusion divine art. The destructive power that filled the sky had already enveloped Heavenly Venerate Siyuan. As it enveloped him, the shell on Heavenly Venerate Siyuan's body began to rapidly disintegrate. Such a hard shell was rapidly disintegrating. This kind of power scared Heavenly Venerate Siyuan out of his wits. Boom! Yi Tianyun's spear arrived. It directly pierced through Heavenly Venerate Siyuan's body and nailed him firmly in the void. Even a Celestial Venerate Numinous treasure could be pierced through. Celestial Venerate Numinous treasures weren't invincible. They could only maximize their power. If one's power far exceeded theirs, they would lose their effect. This shell is quite hard. I almost couldn't pierce through it, Yi Tianyun said calmly. If you kill me, the sacred peak divine region won't let you off. Heavenly Venerate Siyuan twisted his body, wanting to break free from this attack. However, he realized that he couldn't move. It was no wonder that Celestial Venerate Hong couldn't escape in his previous life. A sealing power had already sealed off all his abilities. How could he escape? This was simply his nemesis. The power of the 5 elements already had an existence that could restrain him. Of course, it was their nemesis. It could be said that apart from the light and dark attributes, he could restrain all other attributes. The 5 elements were just that strong. After absorbing them, he felt that his power had increased tremendously. Crushing a Celestial Venerate was as easy as drinking water. It wasn't that a Celestial Venerate was too weak. It was that he had too many trump cards. I think that even if I don't kill you, the Sacred Peak Divine Region will find trouble with me. After all, the previous Celestial Venerate Hong died under my spear. Do you think they will let me off? Yi Tianyun laughed coldly. Moreover, they are competitors in the battle of the Divine Realms. Will they let me off? Ha ha ha. With just this bit of ability, you aren't fit to go against the Sacred Peak Divine Region. My strength is just one of them. You're dead. Heavenly Venerate Siyuan cursed loudly when he saw that Yi Tianyun wouldn't let him off. Since he was going to die anyway, why not curse to his heart's content? Chapter 1377. Ding! Successfully killed Siyuan Heavenly Venerate. Reward, 110. 000 EXP, 2000 Crazy Point, 2000 SPS, Armored Fiend Bloodline, Rare, Sky Fiend Armor, High-Grade Heavenly Dao, Information Record of the River Basin God Realm. You have successfully killed someone of a higher level. You have gained an additional 50,000 compressed experience points. The reward popped up. Overall, it wasn't bad, just that there wasn't an Empyrean spirit treasure. Of course, even if it dropped, it might not be suitable for him to use. Empyrean spirit treasures were not like other treasures that required a corresponding ability to be used. Empyrean spirit treasures could be said to be very valuable, but it could also be said to be very worthless. Every Empyrean would be able to nurture their own treasures. This was similar to his own abilities. When he broke through to the Empyrean level, he would begin to nurture his treasures. As for what kind of Empyrean spirit treasure was born, not only did it depend on one's own ability, but it also depended on one's own materials. The key point was that there was no need for any refining techniques. All that was needed was to nurture it slowly. This was similar to the core energy within one's body. It needed to be nurtured bit by bit before it could finally form an Empyrean spirit treasure. Generally speaking, the effect would be the best when used by the user. However, if the attributes were about the same, the effects would still be very powerful. The number of times an Empyrean spirit treasure could breed was limited. Each level could only nurture one. This meant that the lower, middle, and upper levels could all nurture one. Every level that produced one was equivalent to an Empyrean spirit treasure of that level. Empyrean Death God didn't have an upper Empyrean spirit treasure, mainly because it hadn't been born yet. The higher the level of an Empyrean spirit treasure, the higher the difficulty of nurturing it. To Yi Tianyun, the more, the better. It was better than nothing. Then, he shifted his gaze to Sir God Yi Long. This guy had been rather arrogant previously, but he had been dragged over by Yi Tianyun. What do you want to do? Sir God Yi Long was heavily injured and was firmly restrained by Yi Tianyun. She couldn't move. I don't want to do anything. I just want to ask something. Yi Tianyun didn't waste any words. He grabbed his head and suppressed it with his violent soul force. He immediately began to search his soul. God Lord Yi Long's eyes turned white as her memories were extracted continuously. After a while, Sir God Yi Long was thrown to the side. He had become an idiot. Under such a shocking soul search, how could he not become an idiot? So that's how it is, Yi Tianyun wanted to search for the memories of the Divine Emperor Yuqin. From the looks of it, the Divine Emperor Yuqin was indeed still in the Sacred Peak Celestial Realm and had been working for them. Because of the oath, there was really no way to change it, unless the owner of the oath died. Following that, Yi Tianyun raised his hand and got rid of God Lord Yi Long. After cleaning them up, he turned his attention back to the traitors. I'm done. It's time for those small fries. With a wave of his hand, Yi Tianyun grabbed the traitors who had been sent flying. He didn't kill them. Instead, he kicked them one by one to pull aggro. That way, if they were killed, they would gain experience. I'll leave these traitors to you. Yi Tianyun clapped his hands. He was very satisfied with his strength. After absorbing the 5 elemental cores and fusing them with his martial arts, he had improved greatly in all aspects. He hadn't broken through in his cultivation, but the improvement in this aspect was quite shocking. It was even more significant than raising his cultivation by 1 or 2 levels. One's own foundation was often the most important. This situation wasn't surprising. On the other hand, the Glaze Region Master and the others were stunned. They had thought that they would have to fight to the death with Heavenly Venerate Siyuan. Who knew that Yi Tianyun would kill a Heavenly Venerate in just a few moves? If he had killed a Heavenly Venerate before, he would have relied on sneak attacks. Now, he had relied on his strength to kill Heavenly Venerate Siyuan. This terrifying power caused them to suck in a breath of cold air. It was simply too terrifying. Before they knew it, Yi Tianyun had already surpassed everyone, including the Glaze Region Master. Elder Go Huang and the others shuddered. They all suspected that Yi Tianyun had deliberately concealed his strength. Had he been hiding his strength ever since he joined the Heavenly Spring Celestial Realm? But that wasn't right. If that was the case, what was his goal? With such powerful strength, he should have joined a Grade 3 celestial realm instead of staying in a Grade 2 celestial realm. This question was quickly diverted by Yi Tianyun's actions. All of them glared angrily at the traitors. These traitors were all awake and conscious. It was just that they were seriously injured and couldn't move. Seeing that they were walking toward him, his face turned even paler, devoid of blood. At that moment, they realized that their deputy region master was actually so terrifying. You traitors! A bunch of ingrates! I didn't think that you would choose to betray us. Elder Go Huang and the others angrily complained. I am not a traitor. We all want to make our celestial realm more glorious. No, that's right. We didn't do anything wrong. Even if we don't get a reward in the end, at least we can keep our celestial realm after the celestial realm battle. They still didn't give up. They felt that their decision was right and not wrong. Whether it's right or wrong, the punishment for traitors is death. Region Master Glaze's eyes were cold. She waved her hand, and the blue ribbon in her hand swept over, killing the elders one by one. The cleanup task was left to her. As the region master here, this situation was largely related to her. Whether it was her fault or not, she was in the wrong. This was called poor management. Now it's time to get rid of the traitors, but we've offended the Sacred Peak Celestial Realm. What should we do? Elder Go Huang and the others were worried. It didn't matter if the traitors were killed. After all, they were their elders. However, 2 heavenly venerables had died here. They couldn't just casually deal with it. They would definitely incur the wrath of the Sacred Peak Celestial Realm. What else can we do? The result is death anyway. Let's fight it out with them. Region Master Glaze wasn't an invincible existence. Some things couldn't be changed. For example, she couldn't change the situation in front of her. If they joined, they would die. If they didn't join, they would also die. They might as well fight it out. Don't be so pessimistic. Choose to join my celestial realm and participate in the battle of the celestial realm. Yi Tianyun said solemnly. Join your celestial realm and participate in the battle of the celestial realm? They looked at each other. They were all shocked by this topic. What was the main reason? What power did they have? What power did they have? They had some divine lord level, but they were far inferior to a grade 3 celestial realm. They had 1 heavenly venerables, but they were also far inferior to the Sacred Peak Celestial Realm. Why? Region Master Glaze looked at him and asked. Chapter 1378. The phrase, by myself, shocked them all. These words were not just arrogant, they were domineering. They had to admit that it was effective. The strength that Yi Tianyun had shown previously had surpassed many heavenly venerables. But Yi Tianyun was alone. Could this really work? Heavenly Cloud Ruler, the Sacred Peak Celestial Realm that we are facing is too powerful. There are at least 10 heavenly venerables. This is not going to be easy. Elder Go Huang was shocked, but he quickly calmed down. These things needed to be calm. They couldn't just join in a moment of passion. There's no need to say more. Let's join your celestial realm. Glazed Protectorate Lord made his choice. The other elders were shocked. A grade 2 god realm joining a grade 1 god realm. If word of this got out, it would be a joke. There had never been such a precedent, but now they were the ones who had said it. Lord Glazed Protectorate Lord, this. They wanted to cry, but no tears came out. They didn't know what to say. Once Glazed Protectorate Lord made a decision, she would never change her mind. It was like this before, and it was like this now. Do you think that I am hot-headed and make a decision at random? Glazed Protectorate Lord shook his head. If we don't join forces now, are we going to wait until the Sacred Peak Celestial Realm approaches? Everything was set in stone the moment we resisted. But no matter what, it's still a grade 1 god realm expert joining us. Elder Go Huang and the others were no fools. They knew what the situation was like, but they really couldn't accept joining a grade 1 god realm. It was like a powerhouse worshipping a weakling as his master. In the end, they couldn't accept this. It wasn't that they couldn't accept cooperation. It seems that you are still unwilling to put down your pride. Didn't you see the heavenly cloud ruler's strength? Now, he is the one who wants us to join, not the other way around. Glazed Protectorate Lord shook his head. Elder Go Huang and the others fell silent. What Glazed Protectorate Lord said was right. The strength that Yi Tianyun had shown was enough to defeat them. So what if he was a grade 1 god realm? Yi Tianyun alone was already much stronger than them. At the very least, if a few grade 3 god realm heavenly venerables came, they wouldn't be able to handle them. This. But if we join their forces, we'll have to go to great lengths to relocate. Moreover, the environment in a grade 1 god realm is much worse. Why don't they move over to our god realm? No matter which side they joined, they would have to move their base. They couldn't just abandon this place and run away, right? What a waste. Although not all of the planets could be moved away, at least some of them could. If possible, they didn't want to move away. They felt that this place was more secure, and this was only in comparison to a grade 1 god domain. No, you guys should move to my faction. We don't have much time left. Yi Tianyun shook his head and rejected their suggestion. The Heavenly Spring Celestial Realm wasn't bad, but for now, it was still weaker than his 3-realm Celestial Realm. This wasn't just nonsense. The God Spirit race went all out. There were all kinds of great formations on the planets, and they were much more outstanding than this place. Alright, there's no time to lose. Let's move immediately. Region Lord Lioli immediately issued an order. She had always been very decisive and would not go back on her word. Elder Go Huang and the others had bitter smiles on their faces. They could only choose to obey. Soon, they quickly issued an order. At the same time, they controlled several important planets to transform into spirit ships and quickly flew away. Actually, it wasn't difficult to transform them into spirit ships. Any grade 2 god realm could do this. However, it required a lot of materials, and the speed wasn't very fast. Are you guys really that fast? Yi Tianyun looked at the moving planets. Their speed wasn't even 10% of the 3 realms. It was really too slow. This is considered slow. It's already fast enough. How can such a big planet be fast? Elder Go Huang and the others almost jumped up. In their opinion, it was already very fast. At the same time, they were also proud that they were one of the best among the many grade 2 god realms. Alright. Yi Tianyun didn't say much. The 3 realms was created by a super almighty. Naturally, it was much faster than them. However, it was still better than not being able to move them. They could move as many planets as they could. When they announced that they were leaving and choosing to join the 3 realms god realm, the cultivators were in an uproar. They felt that it was a humiliation for a grade 2 god realm to join a grade 1 god realm. Some of them chose to leave, while others chose to stand their ground and retreat together with them. The main reason was that some people heard the news that they had offended the Sacred Peak God realm. Hence, they all chose to leave. They didn't stop them. In such a situation, it was normal for disciples to choose to leave. Those who stayed were the most loyal. However, seeing so many disciples choose to leave, they felt a heartache. The foundation that they had cultivated for so many years was gone just like that. There were still many planets in the God realm that couldn't be moved. It wasn't that they didn't want to leave, but that they couldn't. Only a portion of the planets could be moved. Sigh, if we didn't choose to leave, I think there would be many people who would choose to stay. Elder Go Huang and the others sighed, frowning. I don't think so. Those who should leave will leave eventually. Haven't you all seen this happen many times? Region Master Lioli wasn't pessimistic at all. Instead, she looked calm. And this isn't a wrong decision. Do you think I'm the kind of person who would make a rash decision? They immediately stopped talking. They weren't like that in the past, but now it was hard to say. When they saw that Yi Tianyun was strong, they immediately surrendered to him. They all felt that it was a loss. Yi Tianyun was very strong, but when the time came, they would be facing a grade 3 god realm. Tianyun insisted that we move to his place. I think it's the safest place. There are many secrets that we don't know about there. Region Master Lioli smiled and said, if I'm not wrong, Tianyun is so calm. He must have the help of a powerhouse, or some special power. This time, everyone looked at her. After thinking about it carefully, it was really possible. Yi Tianyun didn't seem like a fool. How could he make a wrong decision at random? Yes, there is indeed a powerhouse helping. However, they will only come to help when the battle of the god realm begins. Yi Tianyun looked at them and smiled. But you don't have to worry. As long as it's not the entire Sacred Peak God realm attacking, I am confident that I can stop them. They won't be able to return. The cold smile on Yi Tianyun's face made them shudder. They immediately thought of the tragic situation of the two holy masters. They were really killed in seconds. Chapter 1379. The other elders were very pessimistic. On the other hand, Glaze Region Master's heart was as clear as a mirror. Combined with Yi Tianyun's situation, she knew he had some confidence. Even if he wasn't very strong, at least he had more confidence than the Heavenly Spring's sacred realm. She never dared to act recklessly. While others thought she was hot-headed, her head was clearer than anyone else's. Yi Tianyun's cultivation level alone is worth it for her to fight. If he could reach this level in a short period of time, it was enough to prove that he wasn't simple. He must have had a fortuitous encounter or had a powerful background. If he concealed his strength, it was even more obvious. He was already very strong to begin with, so he was the most suitable partner. I hope he can continue to surprise me this time. Glaze Region Master looked at Yi Tianyun, her eyes filled with hope. She felt that Yi Tianyun would always give her a little hope. She hoped that there would be a miracle this time. At the same time, the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm was in an uproar. The death of two heavenly venerables was undoubtedly a heavy slap to their faces, especially since these two heavenly venerables were from another sacred realm. This meant that they could participate in the sacred realm battle to snatch the token core. Now that two heavenly venerables were dead, it meant that they had lost two extremely powerful experts. What's going on here? How can a mere grade 2 god realm possess such power? One of the experts sitting on the throne looked coldly at the people below. All of the elders were trembling uncontrollably. They were so frightened by this majestic aura that their bodies were trembling. The expert in front of them was without a doubt the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm's domain master. Naturally, his real name wasn't Sacred Peak. It was just that every domain master used the name of a god realm. This way, people would know which god realm they belonged to. Yes, yes. According to the information we received, the other party has a helper. Moreover, it's a grade 1 god realm helper. He's from the Three Realms god realm that appeared recently. The Three Realms god realm was originally called the Chaos Celestial Realm. It's a land without a master. It's extremely chaotic. To conquer the Chaos Celestial Realm, one needs to be at least a half-step heavenly venerable or a heavenly venerable. Therefore, the Chaos Celestial Realm is stronger than most grade 1 god realms. Being able to control the Chaos Celestial Realm means that the domain master isn't simple. From the looks of it, the two heavenly venerables are dead. It's possible that the domain master of the Three Realms and the domain master of the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm teamed up. It could also be a sneak attack, or it could be a plot. Enough. The Sacred Peak Domain Master slammed the chair and said coldly, I don't want analysis, I want results. Tell me simply, which one of you will go over and completely flatten their god territories? Don't waste your breath on me. The domain master of St. Peak was just that domineering. What he wanted was not useless analysis, but a simple and direct result. Submit to me and prosper, oppose me and perish. The elders below looked at each other. These were the local powerhouses of the sacred peak divine realm. There were 7 or 8 Empyrean venerables sitting on the side. Those who could sit down were all important figures, and the elders who were standing had high cultivation levels, but they were still a far cry from them. Only Empyrean-level powerhouses could sit here and talk. Even a peak divine lord, which was a half-step Empyrean, had to stand. In a third-grade god territory, this was the difference in treatment. Without a Empyrean cultivation level, one had no right to speak at all. The 4 of us will go over. At this time, the 4 elders sitting on the side stood up together. The highest cultivation level was a late-stage lower heavenly venerate, while the lowest was an early-stage lower heavenly venerate. Sending 4 of them at once was considered a relatively large move. 2 Empyreans died there, which proves that the other party is not simple. The 4 of us are best at working together. If we work together, even an early-stage middle heavenly venerate will not be a match for us. Unless the other party has a mid-stage or late-stage middle heavenly venerate powerhouse, we can easily take them down. If there is really an accident, it won't be a problem for us to escape. The leader was the 2nd elder of the sacred peak god territory, Empyrean North Peak. His cultivation level was the highest. As for the great elder, he sat on the side and did not stand up. The great elder's cultivation level was undoubtedly the highest. He was an early-stage middle heavenly venerate, so he was naturally quite top-notch. However, he did not need to go. If even he was sent over, they would really be looking down on these god territories. If 5 elders were to go, how could they not look down on the other party? If they sent too many, they would not be praised for being cautious. It would only show that they were too weak. When the other god territories found out, would they laugh out loud? The sacred peak domain master looked at them and said sternly, "All right, I'll leave it to you. Only success is allowed, failure is not allowed. The myriad heaven god territory is laughing at us. You must take them down." He was very confident in the 4 heavenly venerates. He knew how strong they were. When they worked together, they were indeed very powerful. Even if they faced a powerful heavenly venerate, they had full confidence in escaping. "Yes, sacred peak domain master." The 4 of them immediately turned around and flew out, not staying any longer. If they said they would eradicate them, they would eradicate them. They would use the fastest speed to wipe out these god territories that had offended their dignity. The myriad heaven god territory was their enemy, so they would be aware of even the slightest movement on their side. If a heavenly venerate died here, the other side would definitely be overjoyed. They could not wait for the fewer powerhouses on their side, the better. "Sacred Peak Domain Master, looks like you were really careless. You lost 2 heavenly venerates against a grade 1 and grade 2 god territory. This aspect should be strengthened. Right now, we're stuck at a critical juncture. We can't help you snatch the token core. You'll have to rely on yourselves." "That's right. We can't make any mistakes. If we fail this god territory battle, you can imagine the consequences. The lords above will be very dissatisfied." The powerhouses sitting on the side all released a powerful aura. It was obvious that their cultivation base was at the middle heavenly venerate level. Some had even reached the late heavenly venerate level. These were undoubtedly the helpers from the upper god territory. They were all sitting here, watching the sacred peak domain's every move. There will definitely be no mistakes this time. Everything was due to carelessness. This time, we will send them to investigate clearly. We will definitely solve the problem perfectly. Unless there are other forces helping us, we can easily eradicate them. The sacred peak domain master's back was drenched in cold sweat. These powerhouses were his biggest reliance. If they abandoned him, then the god territory battle would be over. At the end of the day, the sacred peak domain master looked so arrogant, but he was still a pawn of the upper god territory. That's good. However, it could also be the help of other god territories. Right now, many forces don't look like much on the surface, but they have powerhouses secretly guarding them. We won't make a move unless it's a critical moment. Otherwise, it will affect your providence. The heavenly venerates nodded. Carelessly helping would affect their providence. This was not something they wanted to see. Chapter 1380. The sacred peak celestial realm had already sent people to destroy the heavenly spring celestial realm. This news spread quickly among the other celestial realms, and everyone was watching the situation. Most of the celestial realms were gloating. Who asked the sacred peak celestial realm to be so arrogant? They had finally suffered a setback. However, they also felt sympathy for Yi Tianyun. He would soon be destroyed by the sacred peak celestial realm. The sacred peak celestial realm was one of the top celestial realms. Facing such a powerful force, no one was willing to provoke them unless it was a critical moment. As for whether or not the celestial realm would help, that was impossible. No matter how much they disliked the sacred peak celestial realm, they would not help Yi Tianyun. The reason was simple. The battle of the celestial realms was about to begin. They had to accumulate all their strength until then. If they used it now, it would be a waste, and the other celestial realms might benefit from it. That would be the biggest loss. As the four heavenly venerables chased after them, they quickly reached the heavenly spring celestial realm. When they arrived, they saw that most of the forces had been withdrawn. There were still some cultivators here. Boom! An explosion blasted one of the planets into pieces. The cultivators inside lost their souls from the explosion, and most of them were directly killed. A small number of them survived and were caught by Heavenly Venerate North Peak. He looked at the cultivator coldly and asked, "Are only trash like you left in the celestial realm?" "Yes, yes. Only trash like us are left. I heard that they chose to leave. I don't know where they went. Please, please let me go. I'll tell you everything." The cultivator's eyes were filled with fear. He did not even have the courage to lie when he was suppressed by such a powerful force. Heavenly Venerate North Peak threw him, and the cultivator immediately turned into a pile of ashes. Then, he grabbed a few more cultivators, and no one knew where they went. In fact, apart from some elders, most cultivators didn't know where they would be going, let alone them. This was the effect that Yi Tianyun wanted. It looked like they were being transferred, but no one knew where they were being transferred to. Perhaps the celestial realm of the three realms would become a battlefield. At least they would not be easily intercepted during the transfer. After interrogating a large number of cultivators, they finally chose to give up. God Realm of the Three Realms. Heavenly Venerable North Peak's gaze was cold as he said, "They might have moved to the Three Realms Divine Realm. Regardless of whether they have reached the Three Realms Divine Realm, let's flatten it first." Heavenly Venerable North Peak immediately changed his target and headed to the Three Realms Divine Realm. The four of them nodded to each other, tore open the void, and flew away, quickly disappearing from the empty God domain. While they were flying towards the divine realm of the three realms, Yi Tianyun had already bid farewell to Glazed Region Lord and the others and returned to the divine realm of the three realms in advance. He felt that the sacred peak celestial realm would definitely send someone to take revenge. If they couldn't find the person, they would definitely head to the three realms celestial realm. These were all inevitable unless the sacred peak divine realm swallowed their anger. The problem was that this was impossible. As a powerful force, it was impossible for them not to take revenge. If it was Yi Tianyun, he would have done the same. Since he had killed someone on his side, he definitely had to take revenge. Of course, Yi Tianyun wouldn't allow his subordinates to do such a thing. After Yi Tianyun returned to the Three Realms Divine Realm, he didn't let anyone be on guard. Instead, he covered the entire Divine Realm with his spiritual perception. He could observe every detail. This was the effect of having the "I am the Domain Lord" title. He dared to act so recklessly because he had something to rely on. He didn't rely on his 3 senior brothers, but purely on himself. He had many trump cards, and this title was one of them. It was a super powerful trump card that could definitely stop intruders. This top title not only enhanced his damage, but it also allowed him to teleport at will. Coupled with the abilities he had previously obtained, he wouldn't have to worry even if a middle heavenly venerable came, much less a lower heavenly venerable. Another thing was to earn experience. Since the Sacred Peak Celestial Realm was so arrogant, he would deal them a heavy blow. He bet that the other party definitely wouldn't send everyone, but only a small portion. He had long figured out the background of these powerful forces. Each and every one of them was extremely arrogant. At first, they wouldn't even put him in their eyes. This kind of common sense would only make them suffer. In this way, sending a few heavenly venerable powerhouses over wasn't just giving him experience, but also helping him eliminate some enemy powerhouses in advance. It was mainly to give experience. Outside the 3 realms' divine realm, his combat strength wasn't that strong. Taking advantage of the fact that the divine realm battle hadn't started yet, he could reap a huge harvest in advance. Yi Tianyun didn't tell anyone about this. There was no need to alarm anyone. As for announcing his participation in the Divine Realm battle, he would wait for the Glazed Region Lord and the others to arrive. After he stayed here for a period of time, waves of fluctuations finally came from the void at the edge of the 3 realms' divine realm. Following that, 4 figures appeared in the 3 realms' divine realm. Each cultivator exuded a powerful aura. A Grade 1 Divine Realm is indeed a Grade 1 Divine Realm. The environment is too bad. How long has it been since I came here? One of the elders shook his head, his eyes full of disgust and disgust. This feeling was like a rich man entering a slum. It's rare to see a heavenly venerable here. It's very likely that a Grade 3 Divine Realm sent a heavenly venerable here to occupy this place. But what's the point of this? A Grade 1 Divine Realm is too trashy. I don't want it even if it's for free. Who cares what the situation is? Let's flatten all the way and see what the owner of this place is capable of. The 4 of them nodded to each other. When they were about to start attacking from the nearest planet, a shadow fiercely slashed down from the side, and a crack suddenly appeared in the dark void. Heaven slaughtering divine art, metal annihilation. A sense of crisis surged from behind them, causing them to open their pores and mobilize the strongest power in their body to resist. Their reaction was fast enough, but the attack was even faster. Boom! One of the wood attribute elders was directly split in half by a golden light. The golden light was very dazzling in the void. The body that was split in half was swallowed by the surging metal attribute energy. It didn't even have a chance to be reborn before it was completely suppressed. Ding! Successfully killed Heavenly Venerable Huanmu. Reward, 80,000 compressed EXP, 1,000 compressed crazy point, 1,000 SPS, obtained Huanmu's spiritual treasure, clear sky armor, high-grade heavenly Tao, heavenly wood divine art. Successfully killed a Heavenly Venerable Huanmu. Reward, 30,000 compressed EXP. Chapter 1381. This sudden attack did not end there. A golden spear turned into a fiery red color. It was like a red-hot iron rod as it swept toward one of the elders. Whether it is speed or strength, both reached the extreme in an instant. The elder with golden physique was shocked by the scene in front of him. He wanted to quickly block the spear, but the spear had already hit his head, and his consciousness instantly disappeared. Xiong! The flame quickly swallowed the body, turning it into a pile of flying ash, drifting around. Successfully killed Heavenly Venerate Scarlet Gold. Reward, 85,000 EXP, 1,000 Crazy Point, 1,000 SPS, obtained Golden Spirit Treasure, Golden Moon Divine Art, 50 times EXP card. Successfully killed a Heavenly Master, 30,000 EXP points. The battle was far from over. The figure swept out once again, wanting to kill the other 2 Heavenly Venerables. The remaining 2 Empyreans rapidly gathered together. With a loud roar, the Empyrean spirit treasures within their bodies were released, transforming into thick invincible shields. Boom! After the heavy spear smashed down, the 2 of them were sent flying. There were only a few more cracks on the thick protective shield, and it did not shatter under the impact of the spear. Fire attribute and the special wind attribute, the effect is not bad. The person who appeared in front of them is naturally Yi Tianyun. Through the 50 times damage of the title, there is also the stacking of the attribute suppression, accompanied by a terrifying suppression. The title not only enhances the damage, but also the suppression, but for Heavenly Masters, the weakening effect is not much, only about 20% or so. Although it is only a little bit, for them, it is basically equivalent to cutting off an arm. With this title and the suppression, he didn't even need to rely on his crazy damage mode to kill a Heavenly Venerate. But it is just a lower Heavenly Master. If it is a middle Heavenly Master, then he needs to activate the crazy damage mode. This is the proof of the saying, in my territory, I call the shots. Divine Emperor level. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The strong person who killed them turned out to be a Divine Emperor. This is something they didn't think of. If the other party was a middle Heavenly Master, they wouldn't be surprised. Now that he was a Divine Lord Cultivator, the aura he gave them was as such. For the first time in their lives, they wondered if their judgment was wrong. It felt like he was a Divine Lord, but the power he displayed was comparable to a middle Heavenly Venerate. He was even more heaven-defying than a middle-level Heavenly Venerable. Even if a middle-level Empyrean killed their way over, they wouldn't be so stealthy. 2 elders were killed almost instantly, scaring them until their limbs went soft. They had thought that they would be able to join forces, but now, 2 of them had already died. As for their combined defense, it was even more fragile and had almost been smashed apart. What cultivation level is important? Killing all of you is enough. Yi Tianyun sneered. The starry divine spear in his hand didn't stop for even a moment. He waved it and smashed it against the shield. The 2 Empyrean Venerables' faces turned serious and they immediately changed their mentality. They knew that if they didn't counterattack, only death awaited them. Thus, when the wind and fire attributes were stacked together, they immediately formed an extremely powerful tornado. The energy of this tornado covered a large area, besieging over towards Yi Tianyun. It was a siege with virtually no blind spots. The horrifying tornado even turned into a wall, sealing off all escape routes. This level of horrifying tornado was enough to tear apart all space. The void was rapidly torn apart under this tornado. It was useless to hide in the void. This was the effect of fire giving birth to wind. It could make the power of the tornado stronger. After joining forces, the power was greatly enhanced. All at once, the effect soared to the power of an early-stage Middle Empyrean cultivation. It was just a pity that there were only 2 people. If the 4 of them joined forces, the power could absolutely suppress ordinary early-stage Middle Empyrean powerhouses. They could even fight with middle-stage powerhouses. The power is still alright, but it's still too far off. Suppress. The starry divine spear in Yi Tianyun's hand waved. An invisible force transmitted over from the void, suppressing down fiercely from the sky. The originally violent tornado became an ordinary tornado all at once. The power was cut down by 30%. This was his territory, after all. As long as it was energy, it could be suppressed. Immediately after, he smashed down with his spear again. This tornado was easily broken. He rushed up and pierced through one of the fire attribute Heavenly Venerables. Heaven-slaying divine art, water annihilation. A thick water attribute aura was mobilized from the 5-element core in his body. The starry divine spear in his hand seemed to be filled with water attribute power. In an instant, it was already in front of him. Defend. The 2 of them immediately cooperated and once again built a thick barrier. This kind of barrier was equivalent to a special kind of wind barrier. It could withstand extremely strong attacks. Especially when the two of them joined forces, their defensive power was even stronger. Break for me. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold. The starry divine spear in his hand glowed with a golden light. The all-conquering power of magic gold was released. Mixed with the power of water immediately turned into a sharp sword that stabbed down. Clang! The thick wind barrier was easily cut open. The other party was shocked. This was a treasure formed by their Empyrean spiritual treasure. How could it be so easily broken? After piercing the wind barrier, the spear directly pierced through the fire attribute Heavenly Venerables. Heavenly Venerables' North Peak's face turned pale. He quickly dodged to the side. This spear not only killed the fire attribute Heavenly Venerables, but it also brought a strong sense of death to him. He really wanted to save his companion, but the disparity in strength was too great. It was simply a one-sided beating. Die! Yi Tianyun twisted, and the fire attribute Heavenly Venerables was immediately torn into countless pieces. Successfully killed Heavenly Venerables Crimson Light. Reward, 95,000 compressed EXP, 1,600 compressed Crazy Point, 1,300 SPS. Reward, Crimson Light Spiritual Treasure, Crimson Light Divine Art, 5,000 compressed EXP and Divine Pill. Reward, 20,000 compressed EXP for killing above level. Compressed Divine Pill. Yi Tianyun felt a bit speechless about this reward. Although it was not bad, the overall difference was too big. Immediately, his eyes turned to the last remaining Heavenly Venerables North Peak. Out of the 4 elders, he was the only one left. He had to admit that this was really tragic. They didn't destroy any planets, nor did they kill any powerhouses from the 3 realms God realm, and they already lost 4 of their elders. Chapter 1382. Are all the divine lords of the 3 realms divine realm this strong? Heavenly Venerable North Peak began to doubt his life. How could the divine lords here be so strong? Otherwise, they could hide their auras. But that was not right. He did not sense any heavenly venerable power. It was the orthodox power of the heavenly Tao. It was precisely because of this that he began to doubt his judgment. It was normal to hide one's aura when walking, but to hide one's aura in battle? Hence, he felt that the other party's cultivation level was truly at the Divine Lord level, just as he felt. But even at the Divine Lord level, the other party could erupt with power that he could not hope to match. Not bad. All the Divine Lords of the 3 realms Divine Realm are this strong. Yi Tianyun teased as he approached Heavenly Venerable North Peak step by step. He looked at him and said, I never expected the Sacred Peak Divine Realm to give me face by sending 4 Heavenly Venerables. I wonder if they will send other powerful Heavenly Venerables. I'm looking forward to it. The more the better. Heavenly Venerable North Peak's expression changed. If more Heavenly Venerables came, the outcome would be the same as before. They would all be easily killed. Everything happened too quickly, so quickly that he had no way to defend himself. Now, he was in despair. If he did not send the message back, no one would know about the situation here. If he did not return for too long, he would definitely be judged dead. If they still sent people over, they would fall for it. Run! Heavenly Venerable North Peak did not know when a bead had appeared. He crushed it and the bead immediately wrapped around him, instantly disappearing from his spot. This was an escape bead. As long as he used it, he could easily escape. It was similar to teleportation, allowing him to escape to a faraway place. The problem was that the location was random. It was unknown where he would escape to. Swoosh! The next moment, he appeared in a certain region of the 3 realms Divine Realm. He did not know where he had escaped to, but he was certain that he had escaped very far. This escape bead was much faster than tearing through space to escape. Tearing through space required some time. If the difference in cultivation was huge, this amount of time would not be long. However, against someone much stronger than him, it would take a long time. Hurry up and spread the news. There's a divine lord here that's comparable to a middle heavenly venerate. Furthermore, he appears and disappears unpredictably. Heavenly Venerate North Peak quickly took out his communication jade pendant, hoping to spread the news. When he poured his spiritual sense into it and was about to crush it, a cold light streaked over and cut off his arm. You want to send a message? Did you ask for my permission? A ghostly voice came from behind. Heavenly Venerable North Peak ignored the pain and quickly dodged to the side. What he saw was still that familiar figure, scaring him out of his wits. Why would I appear here? I've already used the escape god pearl. Without any hesitation, he quickly took out another escape divine pearl with his remaining arm. Just as he was about to crush it, a ray of cold light came from behind him and chopped off his other arm. Now, he didn't even have a hand. If he wanted to be reborn, he would need some time to quickly recover. I already said, did you ask me if you wanted to send a message? Tianyun reached out and stabbed. The stellar divine spear pierced through Heavenly Venerable North Peak's body and nailed him in the void. The 5 elemental core's energy surged out and suppressed his strength, preventing him from escaping. Heavenly Venerable North Peak's heart was dead. He didn't expect that he wouldn't even have a chance to escape. He had even used the escape god pearl. This thing was a one-time use item, and its price was equivalent to a high-grade heavenly Tao treasure. How could he not feel the pinch? Heavenly Venerates basically all had Heavenly Venerate spirit treasures. However, with his cultivation, he could only have one Heavenly Venerate spirit treasure. Sometimes, he still had to rely on Heavenly Tao treasures. Otherwise, there would be nothing else he could use. Kill me. I'll accept my fate. Heavenly Venerable North Peak's gaze was resolute. At this point, he could only accept his fate. However, he looked coldly at Tianyun and said, however, don't think that our sacred peak divine realm only has this bit of power. When the divine realm war begins, your divine realm will definitely be destroyed. After the divine realm war began, the entire divine realm would fall into chaos. It would be normal for some forces to be destroyed. Do you know why I spared your life? Tianyun looked at him and smiled. Because I want you to send a message. If you don't, how can I send a message about my situation? Send a message. Heavenly Venerable North Peak was stunned. He had wanted to send a message before, but Tianyun had interrupted him. Now, he was the one to send a message. Immediately, Tianyun took out a communication divine stone from Heavenly Venerable North Peak's body and placed it on his head. You can send a message now. It's best if you say that I was ambushed. I did ambush you. Ambush? Heavenly Venerable North Peak subconsciously asked, but his voice had already entered the communication divine stone. Not only could this communication divine stone record spiritual sense memories, but it could also record voices. As he said this, Tianyun suddenly smashed the communication divine stone on his head. With a loud bang, the communication divine stone broke and the message was rapidly transmitted. It's done. That's right, it was a sneak attack. Tianyun was very satisfied. I didn't use my strongest strength to defeat you. I used a sneak attack to suppress you. It has nothing to do with strength. You. Heavenly Venerable North Peak's eyes widened. He finally knew why Tianyun didn't want him to send a message. He wanted to send a message that there was a heaven-defying divine lord here, at least at the middle Heavenly Venerable level. Moreover, this divine lord could appear and disappear unpredictably with all sorts of abilities, thus achieving a suppressive effect. Now, Tianyun only needed him to send a message that it was a sneak attack. This way, the other party wouldn't know that they were in an unknown situation. This way, they would think that it was a sneak attack. They would be more cautious and continue sending powerhouses to suppress them. This was the effect that Tianyun wanted. How could he not continue harvesting? There were so many fat sheep. If he didn't harvest a portion of them, he would be letting himself down. Now that he had obtained experience, he could break through to the 6th level of Divine Lord. He wasn't far from the 7th level. However, he didn't want to level up now. After he leveled up, the reward for killing someone above his level might disappear. After all, when the gap wasn't large enough, the reward for killing someone above his level would disappear. This wasn't an outcome he wanted to see. What, you? Thank you so much for your message. I will treat the powerhouses you send well. Of course, it would be a pity if you don't send them over. Yi Tianyun smiled at him. Heavenly Venerable North Peak was furious. If they continued sending people over and caused their deaths, it would be their responsibility. I want you dead. Chapter 1383. Successfully killed Heavenly Master North Peak, obtained 135,000 compressed EXP, 2,600 compressed Crazy Point, and 2,300 SPS, obtained North Peak Spiritual Treasure, North Peak Divine Art, and Sacred Peak God Realm Key, opens most of the secret rooms. Obtained 30,000 compressed EXP for killing a Heavenly Master. All 4 Empyreans were killed, not a single one left behind. The experience and rewards obtained were extremely rich. Not only the items they dropped, but the wealth they carried was also extremely rich. This was a Heavenly Master, especially an Elder of the Sacred Peak God Realm. It can be said that they are extremely rich. The wealth in any random person's storage ring could easily crush half of a Grade 2 God Realm cultivator. Therefore, there is no better way to earn more resources than this kind of invader. There is no need to run around, just wait for them to come. I hope they continue to send a batch of strong masters. It is best if they are stronger. Yi Tianyun twirled the Star Divine Spear in his hand and smiled faintly. Otherwise, I really can't try to see what kind of effect can be achieved in my territory. The 4 Heavenly Masters were easily killed, and this made him suddenly feel confident. The originally arrogant Heavenly Masters can be easily crushed in front of him. Just the effect of this title is enough to crush everything. After all, in theory, the doubled power and suppressed power are equivalent to superimposing. According to the multiplication, the superimposed effect can be at least 60 to 70 times more power. This alone can be said to be invincible. If the opponent's cultivation is too high, then he will increase his cultivation, and then with a stronger foundation, he can crush the opponent. After the communication Jade Pendant was released, the news quickly spread to the Sacred Peak God Realm. After reading the message, they could only hear the word, sneak attack, and the voice has already stopped. Sneak attack. In the hall, everyone was dumbfounded. The 4 elders sent are all dead? A sneak attack, are they dead or alive? No one knows. But listening to this situation, they must have encountered some kind of danger, and it is even possible that they are all dead. Everyone's face is ugly, especially the Sacred Peak God Realm Lord sitting on the throne. His face is ugly to the extreme. His behavior has affected the major evaluation, especially the Heavenly Master next to him. Their smile is gone, and their face is also not looking good. Losing 4 Empyreans all at once, anyone would not be able to laugh. Especially the Heavenly Masters from the Outer God Realm, who can participate in the whole Divine Realm war, are gone. Even if they are alive, it is estimated that they are dead. It was possible that they were still being pursued, or they were trapped. Anything was possible. There were too few messages sent back. This kind of message with only 2 words might have been interrupted, or it might have been sealed. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been a simple message with only 2 words. With their strength, can a sneak attack work? The Sacred Peak Region Master's face was terrifyingly gloomy, and his heart was filled with anxiety. The mighty ones around him did not know what to think. Their cultivation levels might be lower than the Sacred Peak Region Lords, but they represented the thoughts of the higher-ups. This was completely different. If he were to report this to the higher-ups, he would be done for. He might even have to be replaced by someone else. We don't know if a sneak attack will work, but the situation doesn't seem too good right now. The Empyrean on the side spoke up, his complexion not looking good. If they lose the Divine Realm War, let alone the Sacred Peak Domain, they will suffer too. They have been given an important order, and are now tied to the Sacred Peak Domain, so the Sacred Peak Domain's direction is very important. Cold sweat beads on the Sacred Peak Domain Master's forehead. He can tell that these heavenly masters are not happy. Who can be happy in such a situation? Elders, there should be no problem, as long as we send people to investigate. We will be very careful this time, and send more powerhouses to investigate and figure out what is going on. The Sacred Peak Domain Master said solemnly, who knows, it might be the Myriad Heaven Domain behind this. The Sacred Realm of the Three Realms might be created by the Myriad Heaven Domain. A first-grade God Realm, to be able to keep the four elders, must have a backer. This backer might be the Myriad Heaven Domain. If it is not at the level of the Myriad Heaven Domain, they really can't think of any force that can stop them. The Myriad Heaven Domain? Everyone looked at each other before they slowly nodded their heads, indicating that they agreed with this conjecture. If it really is the Myriad Heaven Domain, this is not an easy matter to solve. We must not attack rashly, first send some people who are good at gathering information. It is best to sneak in and investigate thoroughly, that is the key. One of the middle-level heavenly venerables analyzed calmly. Not attack directly. The Sacred Peak Domain Master is extremely hot-tempered. The four elders are trapped there, and it is unknown if they are dead or alive. Why not send people to rescue them immediately? What if it is a trap? The Heavenly Venerate looked at him coldly and said, the opponent might be the Myriad Heaven Domain. The support they have will not be any less than yours. As for the four of them, let's not care about them for now, first send people to investigate the background of this first-grade God realm. Yes, yes. The Sacred Peak Domain Master could only choose to agree. He had no right to refuse, he was just a pawn. Immediately, they began to send out spies to search for information, including the Divine Emperor Yuqin. The experts they sent out were all divine monarchs, even Lord of Heaven level. They were sneaking in to gather information, not to kill anyone. It was just that the original radical method was changed to scouting. But this decision immediately allowed the heavenly venerables who were supposed to be killed to escape. In the meantime, Yi Tianyun stayed in the sacred realm of the Three Realms, waiting for the Sacred Peak Domain's revenge. But after waiting for a while, he did not see the Sacred Peak Domain's revenge. Instead, he sensed many unfamiliar cultivators with lower cultivation levels entering. There is another acquaintance. Yi Tianyun's figure flashed, and he disappeared on the spot. At the edge of the sacred realm of the Three Realms, the Divine Emperor Yuqin had really broken through to Divine Monarch, but his cultivation level was still relatively low. Reaching level 1 God Monarch meant that he had just broken through not long ago. Sacred Realm of the Three Realms, what is this new sacred realm, where did it come from? She was quite interested that the Divine Emperor Yuqin had been sent here. Anyway, she did not want to stay in the Sacred Peak Domain, so it was not a bad idea to come out and get some fresh air. Not much of a background. A voice came from the side, giving the Divine Emperor Yuqin a fright. He looked to the side cautiously and realized that it was someone he knew. Why are you here? The Divine Emperor Yuqin was shocked. Chapter 1384. Your territory. The Divine Emperor Yuqin quickly caught on to the words. If this was Yi Tianyun's territory, then wouldn't this be Yi Tianyun's territory? She suddenly remembered that according to the outside world, the ruler of this place was called the Heavenly Cloud Ruler. Combined with Yi Tianyun's name, wouldn't it be him? Yes, this is my territory. Did the Saint Peak God Realm send you here to investigate the situation here? Yi Tianyun smiled, not showing any hostility. He already knew the Divine Emperor Yuqin's identity, and the Divine Emperor Yuqin had told him frankly, so there was no problem. The Divine Emperor Yuqin looked at Yi Tianyun from head to toe, as if he had seen a ghost, and said in shock, "Are you really the Heavenly Cloud Ruler?" The Heavenly Cloud Ruler who was the talk of the town before. When I first heard about it, I thought it was someone with the same name. I didn't expect it to be you. Really? Am I that famous? Yi Tianyun said with a faint smile. Of course you're famous, especially when the four of us elders came here without any news. This made us wonder if the Third Realm God Realm had joined forces with the All Heavens God Realm. The Divine Emperor Yuqin said doubtfully. That's a good idea. Yi Tianyun rubbed his chin. It seemed that they really did make the connection. They thought that the first grade God Realm's strength was not enough, and that the third grade God Realm must be behind it. Then what happened to the four elders? Are they dead or alive? The Divine Emperor Yuqin asked. They are already dead. Yi Tianyun shrugged and added, I killed them. You killed them? The Divine Emperor Yuqin's eyes were dull. He would never have thought that it was Yi Tianyun who killed them. It was too inconceivable for him. Yes, I was the one who killed him. You won't send this news back, right? Yi Tianyun said with a smile. I won't. It's a pity that the Great Elder didn't come. Otherwise, I would be free if you killed me. The Divine Emperor Yuqin's eyes lit up as he asked, speaking of which, how did you do it? Did you team up with the other celestial lords, or did you use some sort of trap? For Empyreans, all dead. She believed that he was dead, but she didn't quite believe that it was Yi Tianyun who killed him. Since they were killed in his territory, it could be said that Yi Tianyun had killed them. Didn't I say that I killed him? Yi Tianyun shrugged helplessly. How is that possible? Aren't you only at the Divine Monarch realm now? No, that's not right. Aren't you breaking through too quickly? The Divine Emperor Yuqin carefully probed and discovered that Yi Tianyun's cultivation level was already that of a Divine Lord, far surpassing his own. You won't believe me even if I tell you, so what can I do? Yi Tianyun smiled faintly and said, anyway, I killed them. What kind of powerhouses do you think a first-grade Divine Realm can have? As for joining forces with the myriad heavens Divine Realm, that's simply nonsense. They're already too busy with their own matters, so why would they join forces with me? But. The Divine Emperor Yuqin didn't know what to say for a moment. This news was too shocking for him. No buts. Now that you've planted this group of people, you want to investigate my forces, right? Yi Tianyun had already sensed that unfamiliar cultivators had entered. After he obtained the special title, he could easily sense everything. There was nothing that he couldn't sense. As long as a stranger entered, he would immediately know. Don't try to escape his detection, as he could easily sense them. Yes, the four elders didn't come back, so they didn't dare to continue sending powerhouses, so they could only send us scouts. The Divine Emperor Yuqin sighed and said, what a pity. If the Great Elder was killed by you, then everyone would be happy. Her eyes were filled with pity. If she could solve this problem, she would be completely free. She was controlled by the Great Elder. If the Great Elder didn't die, she naturally wouldn't be free. She still had to abide by the previous oath. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned, and he smiled and said, I have a good idea. If you can get the Great Elder of the St. Peak Divine Realm to come here, I can help you deal with him. At that time, you'll be free. Are you serious? The Divine Emperor Yuqin hated the St. Peak Divine Realm to the extreme. However, she had an oath, so she couldn't resist. Of course, it depends on how you lure them here. Yi Tianyun smiled faintly. The Divine Emperor Yuqin thought for a while, and said, that's not a problem. It's not difficult to lure them here, but you need to get rid of the other scouts. Otherwise, it won't be easy. That's simple. Wait here for a while. Yi Tianyun's figure quickly disappeared. The Divine Emperor Yuqin was stunned. He didn't know how Yi Tianyun disappeared. Although she was puzzled, she didn't leave and waited at the side. After a while, Yi Tianyun reappeared in front of the Divine Emperor Yuqin. He threw a few storage rings and said, these are their belongings. I've dealt with them. What? The Divine Emperor Yuqin was dumbfounded. He took the storage rings and quickly checked them. He found that they were really their belongings. Not a single one was missing. All of them had been dealt with. These scouts being dealt with was actually nothing to be shocked about. The problem was that they were scattered in different areas. If he wanted to deal with them, he would have to search them one by one. Now, Yi Tianyun had dealt with all of them in a short while. It was extremely easy. How is it? Now that they've been dealt with, it should be easier to do things, right? Yi Tianyun smiled faintly and said, "It's best to lure more experts over so that I can deal with them all together." The divine Emperor Yuqin still hadn't recovered from the shock. He slowly raised his head and said, "How did you do it? Is it a special teleportation secret technique?" "You can say that." Yi Tianyun looked at her and said, "Speaking of which, if you go back, won't they check your memories or interrogate you?" "That's not a problem. The oath I made is not a slave's oath, so I still have some freedom. As long as I disguise myself a little, they won't suspect anything," the divine Emperor Yuqin said with a smile. "Besides, even if they interrogate me, what can they get out of me?" Yi Tianyun was stunned. Thinking about it, it made sense. The divine Emperor Yuqin didn't ask too many questions from beginning to end. He was just shocked by his strength. Even if he was interrogated, he could only say that Yi Tianyun was stronger. However, the divine Emperor Yuqin was in trouble. He was probably going to die. "Since you are so confident, I'll leave it to you," Yi Tianyun nodded and said. "Oh right, if I succeed in luring them over and you help me deal with them, can I make a request?" the divine Emperor Yuqin said with a mysterious smile. "Make a request? I've already returned your freedom." "Forget it, tell me what you want," Yi Tianyun said after thinking for a while. Chapter 1385. That's simple. Yi Tianyun was stunned. He didn't expect the other party to make such a request. Not only did he agree, but he was basically welcoming her to join. Now that they were short of manpower, and in addition, they were filled with hatred towards the sacred peak celestial realm. The more who joined, the better. In addition, if she successfully lured them over, it would be equivalent to a great merit. Although it was equivalent to mutual benefit, overall speaking, it would still be a great help to him. Lured over the remaining elders, and then ruthlessly eradicated them. It was equivalent to eradicating the internal elders of the sacred peak celestial realm. At that time, it was equivalent to chopping off both arms. The battle of the celestial realm would be fun. It's that simple. Are you willing to take me in? The divine Emperor Yuqin's beautiful eyes flickered. She was very much looking forward to Yi Tianyun accepting her. "Needless to say, you're very welcome," Yi Tianyun said with a smile. "All right then, wait for my good news." The divine Emperor Yuqin smiled at him, turned around, and flew back. Looking at her departing figure, Yi Tianyun smiled knowingly. He wasn't the slightest bit worried that the divine Emperor Yuqin would betray him. He originally hated the sacred peak celestial realm. How could he possibly betray him? The rest would have to depend on her ability to deceive them. Acting in front of so many celestial venerables was not a simple matter. It's almost time. Sister Lioli and the rest are preparing to arrive. It had been some time since the transfer. Logically speaking, they should be arriving soon. As expected, very soon, several planets were finally transferred to the three-realm celestial realm. The appearance of several giant planets immediately alerted the surrounding guards. "Oh my god, what did I see? Several giant planets are flying over here. Oh my god, hurry up and inform the elders. These fellows are coming with ill intentions. They're definitely not good people. Alert, alert. Everyone on alert, prepare to resist these invaders." Many guards got busy one by one, preparing to activate various defensive arrays to resist these behemoths. The three-realm celestial realm was now in the stage where the doors were wide open. It felt like there were no walls. Unlike those complete celestial realms, which could only be entered through passageways. It would take a lot of effort to create these passageways. Elder Gu and the others had suggested that they should do it now. Yi Tianyun had told them not to do it, so he left the door wide open and allowed them to come in freely. The main reason was that he had a title. Also, he was going to participate in the Battle of the Divine Realms. Very soon, he would be going to the inner divine realm. Moreover, it would take many years to create it. If Elder Gu and the rest put in all their effort, they would need at least a few thousand years to set it up. Creating these tunnels was not an easy task, and it required a lot of effort. Don't be so nervous, these are our allies. Yi Tianyun's figure appeared next to the guards and said. Heavenly Cloud Domain Lord. Yes. We understand, we will inform the guards to lift the alert now. When the guards saw Yi Tianyun, he immediately changed the alert without saying anything. Yi Tianyun followed Yi Tianyun and flew to the glazed domain lord's side. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, You are finally here. It could be seen that they all had traces of battle. A little. When we passed through a few areas, we encountered a large number of demonic beasts. We could only fight. Region Master Glaze and the others felt very helpless. They hadn't been so busy for a long time. The rest of the elders were even more exhausted. How could it not be tiring to fend off the endless waves of demonic beasts? The speed of such a huge planet wasn't fast. Even if the planet's defenses were perfect, it wouldn't be able to withstand continuous attacks. They could only obediently kill these demonic beasts. The journey had been exhausting, but he couldn't stop. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if they caught up. It's good that you're here. I'll arrange a place for you near the center. It'll be safer there, said Yi Tianyun with a smile. Safer? The elders and deacons exchanged glances with one another. They did not agree with the suggestion. How safe could a grade 1 god domain be? Especially a brand new god domain. It would definitely not be perfect in all aspects. However, they couldn't say it out loud. After all, they had come to someone else's territory, so they had to keep a low profile. However, when they passed by the warning planet, they saw that the planet had begun to put away the defense arrays one by one and even put down some offensive arrays. They all widened their eyes. This is a grade 4 divine seal. That offensive divine seal is close to a grade 5 divine seal. This is too exaggerated. How could such a small planet have so many divine arrays? This is too wasteful, isn't it? There are also mobile divine arrays. They are all inside. Elder Go Huang and the others were stunned. These powerful divine seals were engraved on an inconspicuous planet, which was simply a waste. Only these few important planets had such precious divine seals. Most importantly, grade 4 divine seals were extremely rare, and most of them were grade 3 divine seals. Such a small planet even had a grade 5 divine seal. How could they not be shocked? Tianyun Territorial Lord, isn't this too wasteful? Even if you want to engrave them, you should only engrave them on the important planets. Could it be that they were already there? Elder Go Huang and the others looked as if they had just lost money. They felt that it was a waste. No, I asked my men to engrave them on the planet. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, however, these are relatively ordinary divine seals. The closer we get to the planet, the more powerful divine seals there are. To put it bluntly, because this planet is too small, there are fewer divine seals engraved on it. It can be considered the worst planet. The trashiest one. They sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with fear and shock. This was already a level better than the best they had, and they were told that it was the worst planet? It felt like an ordinary person using a grade 2 elixir was an extravagant existence. Now, they met someone who said that grade 2 elixir was used in their house to water the flowers. The things they were so proud of were the worst here. Originally, they were a little dissatisfied with joining a grade 1 god realm, but now, it was replaced by a sense of inferiority. Seeing their expressions, Yi Tianyun smiled in his heart. In fact, these words were exaggerated. This was not the worst planet. There were other trashy ones, but this was indeed not the best. He just wanted to crush their self-esteem. Don't think that a grade 1 god realm was inferior to a grade 2 god realm. It depended on whose god realm it was. Chapter 1386. As they followed the planets they passed, they could see the activation of some array formations. On the surface, it was to check the effectiveness of the array formations, but in reality, this was what Yi Tianyun had asked them to do. It was so that Elder Go Huang and the others could clearly see the array formations here. What second-grade God Realm Foundation? It was trash here. It was perfect in all aspects. Even if a heavenly venerable attacked, it could defend for a period of time. Could their planets withstand the fierce attack of a heavenly venerable? The answer was no. At most, their defenses would be broken in 2 or 3 attacks. It was extremely easy. On the other hand, there was a sharp contrast here. It could be said that they were completely oppressed. They had fewer powerhouses, but just in terms of array formations, they had a huge lead. That's a 4th grade divine seal, there's a quasi-5th grade divine seal over there. Heavens, they really have high-grade divine seals. How did they do it? How many resources did they spend? What kind of people did they hire to help? Among their native powerhouses, there were no such high-level existences. There were some who were slightly weaker, but there were none who were too powerful. Hence, the gap between them was extremely strong. There's no need to hire people for this. My faction has people with the corresponding abilities. It's not difficult to carve these arrays. This was not nonsense. The divine spirit race had extremely high attainments in this aspect. Carving these array formations required some effort. In addition, they were on the same side, so there was no need for additional remuneration. If they wanted to do it, the remuneration for hiring people would be extremely high. For example, carving a decent movement array required several heavenly Tao treasures. This was only the remuneration for the movement array. There were still other array formations that required a shocking amount of remuneration. Although they could afford it, they would definitely not be like Yi Tianyun, who would carve arrays on every planet. This was someone being willful. In any case, the divine spirit race had nothing to do here, so they just treated it as cultivation and carve arrays on these planets. You have such geniuses. They gasped, their eyes filled with shock. They had thought that Yi Tianyun was rich and imposing and had hired people from other places. Now it seemed that they had been too naive. They were all on the same side, so there was no need to hire others. This made them even more surprised. Just how did he do it? The Heavenly Spring Divine Realm had been established for such a long time, but they had never obtained so many top geniuses. Yi Tianyun had been their disciple before, but now, he had become a region lord. Not only was his strength heaven-defying, his influence was equally heaven-defying. Yes, but we are still in urgent need of talents in some areas. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, for example, alchemists and blacksmiths. It just so happens that your addition can fill in the gaps in this area. This was indeed the case. Even if he had a lot of resources, it would be difficult to train them in a short period of time. Not everyone could have a system like him. Only then did they heave a sigh of relief. If they were suppressed in everything, they really wouldn't be able to show their faces here. At that time, they would just be eating rice without doing anything. On the contrary, the colored glaze region master's eyes lit up, full of surprise, and she said, "No wonder you said you wanted to join your force. Now it seems that just these things alone have surpassed us by a large margin." The words of the glazed region master made the elders feel embarrassed. They had been a little repulsed before, but now they didn't feel the slightest bit repulsed. On the contrary, they had to hide here for a while because of them. It's okay, it will be stronger in the future. Yi Tianyun smiled and said. They looked at each other in dismay. Could he be even stronger? For them, this was already as difficult as ascending to the sky. Soon, they quickly flew to the center and arrived at the central area. In fact, there was nothing special here. It was just a little closer to the three realms. In terms of safety, this was indeed the safest place. This is almost the place. I hope we can have a pleasant cooperation during this period of time. Yi Tianyun smiled and said. A pleasant cooperation. They nodded quickly. Tianyun Region Lord, what do you need us to do? Colored Glaze Region Master asked next to him. Don't worry. Soon, someone will assign relevant tasks to you. Is it okay for us to arrange this? Yi Tianyun asked. This is not a problem. We are here. If we don't explain it, we don't know what we can share. Naturally, Colored Glaze Region Master didn't have any objections. The other party had shown strength that convinced them, so they naturally chose to obey. Well, no problem. Later, I will introduce you to the main people here. At the same time, I will arrange for people to come and strengthen your great array so that it can resist the attacks of celestial masters. Yi Tianyun said with a smile. We will strengthen it here. The elders were speechless. They were immediately shocked by Yi Tianyun's generosity. Of course. You have joined us, so naturally, you will see us as one and help each other. As for other affairs, we will not interfere in the management. You will manage them yourselves. Yi Tianyun used the same method again. He had just joined, so he couldn't interfere at will. This could easily cause conflicts, so it was best to manage them separately. However, gradually, they would be assimilated, just like the previous forces. Yi Tianyun was not in a hurry at all. He would take it step by step, and when the time came, he would successfully join them. Good. The elders' eyes lit up. They thought that he would interfere in the management, but now it seemed that they had thought too much. Soon, Shi Shuiyun and the others came over one after another. All of them were heroines among women, and they landed at the side with extraordinary aura. This is my wife, this is the managing elder, this is... Yi Tianyun introduced them one by one, and they were all stunned. All of them were women in charge. This was unbelievable to them. Most of them were men in charge. Colored Glaze Region Master was able to be in charge because she was strong enough. What about all of them? Were they really that strong? Hello, I am Tianyun's wife. I am glad that all of you can join us. Shi Shuiyun walked over in a natural and unrestrained manner. She didn't feel any pressure because of their cultivation. This was a kind of confidence. Shi Shuiyun's cultivation was at the Earth Monarch realm. She was much weaker than them, but from her aura, she wasn't weak. Seems like this is my sister-in-law. I am Colored Glaze Region Master. You can just call me Sister Colored Glaze in the future. Colored Glaze Region Master walked over and grabbed Shi Shuiyun's small hand with an amiable expression. Elder Go Huang and the others' eyes almost popped out. Colored Glaze Region Master was actually so amiable. Chapter 1387. Sister Luli. Shi Shuiyun smiled sweetly and glanced at Yi Tianyun. Not bad, not bad. The wife chosen by Brother Tianyun is different. Her physique is similar to mine, so we can cultivate together. Luli Region Lord had a water attribute physique, and Shi Shuiyun also had an ice attribute physique. Both of them were similar in nature. Okay, Sister Luli. Shi Shuiyun's eyes lit up. She knew Luli Region Lord's ability. It was definitely a good thing for her to cultivate with an expert with a similar attribute. They quickly became familiar with each other. After introducing each other, they knew each other's position. If there was any problem, they could go to them. However, no matter how Elder Go Huang and the others looked at it, they were unable to tell anything. All they felt was that the other party's cultivation was too low. This was a very normal way of judging. When they first met, the most intuitive thing was their cultivation. If their cultivation was too low, they wouldn't treat them as friends, let alone pay attention to them. Strength was always the most important, so it wasn't that they looked down on others. Their first impression was like this, but it would depend on their performance later. However, with Lee Tianyun present, they wouldn't say anything and would negotiate with them. They just felt a little awkward. They had never discussed things with someone who was so much lower than them. The gap was too big, and the generation gap was even bigger. Then let's start discussing the relationship of cooperation. When you come to us, the first thing is to be loyal enough. Also, in completing the task, you have to follow our situation. We won't impose any conditions. If you want to do the task, then do it. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. EUA stood up and began to talk a lot, listing out the details of the situation. They didn't enter any conference room. They just discussed things here. They were swift and decisive, not wasting any time. This was their style of doing things. It had always been like this, and it had never changed. Elder Go Huang and the others frowned. They felt that it was a little inappropriate to discuss things here, but because of Yi Tianyun, they listened here. Who knew that the more they listened, the more surprised they became. What they said was quite well planned. Inside and out, it was perfectly planned, almost impeccable. Everything was arranged very reasonably. Even they might not be able to arrange it so perfectly. The key was that it was fair enough. It didn't make things difficult for them at all, and it discussed from both sides' perspectives. After saying that, they realized that they didn't even have a chance to refute. Everything was impeccable. This meant that all they had to do was nod their heads and agree to do it. Moreover, they wouldn't feel the slightest bit unconvinced. That's about it. Is there anything else you'd like to add? EUA and the others stood in front of everyone, showing no fear at all. They knew how powerful the other party's cultivation was, and they also knew that they were grade 2 god realms. When they came to the divine domain, it was the same as entering a whole new world. After learning many things, they discovered how insignificant they were and that there were still many things they needed to do. Therefore, he worked even harder and trained even harder. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to keep up with Yi Tianyun's footsteps. But even so, he still couldn't keep up. Now that both sides were discussing something, they knew that their opportunity had come. They definitely could not fall into a disadvantageous position, and it was also time for them to display their strength. Their cultivation was weak, but that didn't mean they couldn't help. Now, they were rendered speechless. None of them knew what to say. No, there's nothing to add. Elder Go Huang smacked his lips. If all the discussions in the future were like this, they could basically make a decision right away. There was no need to argue or waste any time. Since there's nothing to add, then elders, you can make your own arrangements. If there's anything, you can discuss it with them. Their opinions are the same as mine. Yi Tianyun nodded with a smile, as if he had completely relinquished his authority to them. Yi Tianyun was well aware of their efficiency and style. He had always been at ease with them. It was all thanks to them that the Three Realms God Realm could undergo such earth-shattering changes in such a short period of time. Their cultivation wasn't the highest, but planning was definitely their forte. Then, they retreated one by one to busy themselves with their own matters. Since they had just arrived, there were still many things to do. For example, the things that they had just discussed had to be done. Region Mistress Glaze also followed them back to busy herself with her own matters. After they left, the women let out a deep breath and were completely relieved. It's finally over. The pressure was really great, that's right. The difference in cultivation, just the aura that they subconsciously revealed gave people a lot of pressure. Fortunately, they didn't say much. I thought they would refute. They all sighed, thinking that they would be scolded for a long time, or that all their plans would be rejected. Don't worry, you did very well. It was very perfect. Yi Tianyun gave them a thumbs up and said, and it was quite imposing. You don't have to be afraid of anything. Don't you have me? But even so, I'm still worried. I'm afraid that it won't be a good start. EUA and the others rolled their eyes. Only they knew the pressure. There was a huge difference in their overall strength. If they were at a disadvantage, it wouldn't be easy to manage. You must have confidence in yourselves. You've been doing very well. Compared to the management of those god realms, it's much better. Yi Tianyun thought for a moment, then added, even an ordinary rank 3 god realm can't compare to your management. That exaggerated? They were speechless. They knew how strong a rank 3 god realm was, but if they were compared, it would be too exaggerated. That's the truth. Don't think it's exaggerated. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, compared to most god realms, really. So don't feel inferior. Although your cultivation is inferior, your overall cultivation time is much shorter than theirs. Sooner or later, we will surpass them by a large margin. Yes. The women nodded, their beautiful eyes filled with excitement. Receiving Yi Tianyun's encouragement was more important than anything else. While they were busy, Shi Shuyan came over and pinched him hard. She rolled her eyes and said, you even have an older sister. Looks like your relationship isn't shallow. Ahem, it's just a so-so. We went to train together, and after a few battles, our relationship gradually improved. Yi Tianyun said awkwardly. Humph. Shi Shuyan rubbed the place where he was pinched and said with a smile, forget it, I won't tease you anymore. Let's get busy. I believe that we will soon surpass those rank 2 god realms, maybe even rank 3 god realms. Chapter 1388. Shi Shuyan quickly went about her own business. Due to the merger of the two forces, there were many things that needed to be done. Yi Tianyun was the most relaxed among them, but it was only temporary. All he needed to do now was wait for the divine Emperor Yuqin to come with the first elder, and then he would eliminate them. Ding! Successfully let the second-grade sacred land join your force. Obtained 1,000 points of compressed experience and 1,000 points of compressed proficiency. At the same time, I am the region lord has been slightly enhanced by 5 times. There is such a reward. Yi Tianyun was delighted. He liked this kind of reward very much. He did not expect that there would be such a special reward if a force joined him. The reward was very simple and crude. It could even enhance the effect of the title. This meant that if he continued to let other forces join him, the power of his title would continue to increase and become stronger. However, it was still relatively difficult to let other forces join him. This reminded him of the heavenly mandate realm. If they could join him, not only could he expand his current strength, but he could also enhance the power of his title. Why not? The heavenly mandate realm, but it will not be easy for them to join. Yi Tianyun shook his head. Based on the current situation, it was unlikely that other sacred lands would choose to join him. It was better to be in charge than to listen to the orders of others. This matter could only be put aside for the time being. I wonder how the situation is on the side of the divine Emperor Yuqin. Yi Tianyun was most concerned about this matter. It would affect the direction of the future. Defeating most of the elders meant that the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm had lost more than half of its members. It would undoubtedly be easier to fight for it. Although there were other sacred lands, at least the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm had been severely injured. While Yi Tianyun was worrying, the divine Emperor Yuqin finally returned to the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm. Under the gaze of many experts, she rushed in with injuries and knelt on the ground. What's going on? When the Sacred Peak Region Master and the others saw the divine Emperor Yuqin, they were shocked, especially the Great Elder, who stood up in shock. Sacred Peak Region Master, I came back from scouting. The rest of my companions died, and I was the only one who managed to escape. I've already found out the gist of it. The elders were captured alive and trapped in the celestial realm of the three realms. As for where they are, I'm not too sure. The experts in the celestial realm of the three realms are especially sinister. Their cultivation bases aren't very high, but they have a lot of traps. After the Divine Emperor Yuqin managed to finish his sentence, he immediately fainted. He had lost too much blood and was seriously injured. It was so serious that if it was not treated immediately, it was very likely that he would die. Carry him away for treatment. The great elder stood up and gestured for the guards to carry her away for treatment. Her face was extremely gloomy. The guards immediately carried the Divine Emperor Yuqin away for treatment. As for the other heavenly venerables, they didn't do much checking or soul-searching. In such a situation, they would probably be dead before their souls were searched. After the Divine Emperor Yuqin was carried away, their faces were solemn. They had already learned a lot of information from the great elder's words. The elders didn't die mainly because they were ambushed and trapped by the other party. Heavenly venerables were very strong, but if they were ambushed, they would still fall for it. However, it could be seen that the celestial realm of the three realms was definitely not simple. Sinister. This is too sinister. As expected, they mainly use ambushes. No wonder Heavenly Venerable North Peak's last message was about that ambush. The great elder's eyes were cold as he gritted his teeth. However, they are still alive. In that case, we must send reinforcements. If we don't send reinforcements, they will either be killed after a while or be used as a bargaining chip to exchange for something with us. Heavenly Venerable Nanming is right. It's very likely that they will be used as a bargaining chip to force us to give up on the celestial realm battle. Instead of waiting here, we might as well take the initiative to attack. Even if the myriad heaven celestial realm is the mastermind, we have to fight them. Another heavenly venerable stood up and supported the great elder's words. The sacred peak domain master's face was gloomy. This was not a simple matter. It depended on what the heavenly venerables from the celestial realm had to say. Senior brothers, how should we decide? The sacred peak domain master asked. If they are still alive, we should indeed send reinforcements. If we miss this opportunity, we will really be threatened. However, even if we are threatened, withdrawing from the celestial realm battle is impossible. One of the heavenly venerables thought for a moment before saying, looks like we have to personally go. Even if we lose some of our providence, we have to rescue them. At the same time, we will destroy the celestial realm of the three realms and let the other celestial realms witness the power of the sacred peak domain. Sir, we mustn't do that. Heavenly Venerable Nanming hurriedly advised. Providence is very important, especially when it determines the core of the token. If we don't have enough providence, it will be very far away from us. It will be more difficult to seize it. The involvement of the celestial realm would indeed affect providence. It was not a problem to help occasionally, but if they helped too much, it would really be troublesome. In particular, the location where the token core would appear might be very far away from them. This was not nonsense. Such a situation had really happened. Oh, so you are saying that you plan to go there yourselves? The heavenly venerable frowned and glanced at them. Can you do it? We were careless before, but it's different this time. We will be well prepared. At the same time, we will bring 5 heavenly venerables, and I will personally lead the team. As long as we are not careless, we will definitely be able to take it down. Heavenly Venerable Nanming had deduced this from the words of the Divine Emperor Yuqin. Everything had been careless, and the other party's overall cultivation was not strong. He did not suspect anything. They were already injured to this extent, and they had made an oath with him. Moreover, it had nothing to do with the celestial realm of the 3 realms, so it was impossible for them to lie to him. All right then, I hope there are no more mistakes. This is a critical matter. The Heavenly Venerable said coldly. We will definitely do it well. If we fail, I will bring my head to see you. Heavenly Venerable Nanming made a military pledge. In his opinion, it would definitely work. As long as they were not ambushed, what was there to be afraid of? They would definitely be well prepared this time before they set off. They would not be ambushed. Soon, they sent out 5 heavenly venerables. After a period of time, the divine Emperor Yuqin woke up. His body was extremely weak. 5 heavenly venerables. I hope you can create a miracle this time. This is as far as I can help. The divine Emperor Yuqin was harming himself to gain the confidence of others. He had severely injured his body and returned in a near-death state so that his soul would not be searched. Chapter 1389. With Celestial Venerable South Deep personally leading the team, they rapidly flew towards the 3 realms' divine realm. They were as fast as they could go, and it could be said that they had reached their limits. Right now, their hearts were filled with anger. Especially when they thought about how their elder had been captured, they wanted to save him even more. Not only did he want to make amends, but he also wanted to wash away the humiliation. They did not seem to have made any mistakes, but the failure of the mission was equivalent to the failure of the Sacred Peak God territory, and it could easily affect various evaluations. A bunch of ultimate gods from the inner divine domain were keeping an eye on them. If things went wrong here and they chose to retreat, they would all be doomed. The Sacred Peak Celestial Territory seemed to have many celestial territories to assist them, but in fact, they had accumulated all of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have so many heavenly venerables. Empyreans were not cabbages that could be found anywhere. It was already very shocking for a grade 3 god realm to have 3 or 4 heavenly venerables. Now that they had gathered together, there were as many as a dozen Empyreans. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been so many. Since they had been working together for a long time, their relationship was very good, and there were no major problems. Only then would they be able to head to the inner god's domain together after obtaining the token's core. Up ahead is the divine realm of the 3 realms. This time, we have to be more vigilant. Don't take the initiative to attack. Focus on defense. He had to observe everything here clearly, as well as identify the traps before deciding whether or not to forcefully attack. The most important thing is to save him. Empyrean Southern Nether and the others immediately took out their Empyrean spirit treasures and strengthened their defenses to prevent themselves from being ambushed. They didn't know what kind of sneak attack was so terrifying. In short, they had to be careful and not repeat the same mistake. Soon, they entered the god realm of the 3 realms, and everything went according to plan. In the 3 realms, Yi Tianyun's eyes snapped open, and 2 beams of light shot out of them. They're finally here. The divine Emperor Yuqin really didn't disappoint me. He brought over 5 celestial paragons, and even more. Overall, it's quite acceptable. Yi Tianyun was very satisfied. This amount was not too much, not too little, everything was within his control. Moreover, this was his territory. Even if it was a little more, he could bear it. Crazy Damage Mode, activate. Kuanpeng Bloodline, activate. Divine Dragon Bloodline, activate. Phoenix Bloodline, open, every single mode was unleashed to the fullest. Violent energy was condensed in his hands, and he was long prepared to kill. Facing 5 people, he had to be cautious to avoid any accidents. Especially when dealing with them, he could directly kill them with a single strike, saving time and energy. The reason why he hadn't used it earlier was because he wanted to see if he could deal with them while using his title. He already had the answer from before. Now, he was like a tiger hunting a rabbit, using all his strength. Xiao. Yi Tianyun disappeared from where he was. In another place, the 5 of them carefully observed the surroundings. Their spiritual senses were almost activated to the maximum, covering a large area in all directions. This is the divine realm of the 3 realms. There doesn't seem to be any problem. There's no sense of danger. There's a planet that's relatively large and well guarded, but there aren't any experts there. It looks like the security is quite tight. I don't feel like there's a sneak attack. Strange, isn't it easy to be ambushed here? Could it be that it's not in this area? They came in to investigate for a while, but they didn't find any dangerous areas. Everything seemed normal. It didn't seem to be much different from an ordinary first-grade divine realm. It might not be in this area, but another area. Who knows? No matter what, we have to be vigilant. Empyrean Southern Ming was very vigilant, not daring to relax at all. With the previous example, they didn't dare to relax no matter what. Once they relaxed, they might suffer a sneak attack. Even if it looked safe now, they couldn't relax at all. The other Empyreans were a little relaxed instead. There didn't seem to be any problems in an area, so they shouldn't be so vigilant. But even if they relaxed, they were still vigilant of their surroundings and quickly moved forward. Just when they thought that everything was safe and sound and wondered if they had been fooled, a flash of light suddenly piercing through one of the Empyreans with lightning speed. Boom! That Empyrean exploded directly. Any Empyrean spirit treasure was useless. His protective shield was directly shattered, and he didn't even have a chance to resist. All of this wasn't over yet. Another cold light swept down, slicing another Empyrean at the waist. Then, it quickly flicked upwards, directly exploding into a cloud of blood mist. Extremely violent power, one spear killed one in one shot. After killing two in a row, it pierced through the third. The power of the 5 elements surrounded the divine spear as it continued to swing forward. Enemy attack. They were so scared that their pores opened wide. Only then did they react and quickly retreat to the side. The 5 of them gathered together and didn't split up, which led to them being killed in a row. They were too cautious and gathered together, which led to 2 being killed in a row. Now, the third was pierced by the divine spear again. He couldn't dodge at all, and he didn't even have time to defend. This power was too strong. They could already feel it when the attack came. It was simply the feeling of death. A sense of crisis of death made them not even have the feeling to resist. They could only choose to escape. Boom! The third. Another Empyrean exploded. Only then did Yi Tianyun appear in their line of sight. In the blink of an eye, 3 Empyreans exploded. If word of this got out, it would scare people to death. How big was the gap for there to be such an effect? Divine Lord? They immediately sensed this person's cultivation, their eyes revealing horrified looks. But their hands were not slow, rapidly forming seals, wanting to carry out a counterattack. How can it be? It's actually a Divine Lord. This power is simply comparable to late-stage middle-level Empyrean level. Their hearts could not help trembling. Was this the so-called sneak attack? The key was that how was this a trap? It was completely an extremely powerful suppression, making them not even have the chance to resist. Kill. But they could only choose to toughen their scalps and attack. Empyrean spirit treasures were displayed one after another. Among them, Empyrean South Nether displayed 2 Empyrean spirit treasures. His cultivation reached early-stage middle-level Empyrean cultivation and could condense 2 Empyrean spirit treasures. With this, they were completely forced to use all of their trump cards. How could they still dare to hide anything? If this continued, it would be a dead end. As for escaping, there was even less of a need to think about it. They could only choose to resist. The more they ran, the faster they would die instead. Risking their lives, there might still be a chance. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.